Hello. Hey. What's up, YouTube? It's me, that one person who's on YouTube right now. I hope everybody's doing well. Today, I have no real plans. So, we're gonna watch YouTube. Huge. I'm a commentary channel, baby. That's what this is. You already know it. Ooh. The real question is, what the hell am I gonna watch? Hmm. I don't know. This is the most engaging content you've ever seen. You've never seen content like this before. This is brand new. Watching other people's content. Oh my god. Oh my god. Down bad music. Let's see.
There's a lot of
What's
down bad,
music?
depressed, and lonely people in this world. And when people are down bad, you know
Ah.
they're going to be listening to some down bad music. So today, we're going to categorize this music on the down bad music compass. Your favorite artist will fit somewhere between these two axes: autistic to neurotypical, and male manipulator to virgin. And since down bad music exists in
Male
every genre
manipulator.
with lots of artists,
That's a deep topic right there. I have a lot to say about that one, but I want to see what he
we decided
says.
to match them with the kind of person we think would listen to them. Loser core. We call our first group Loser core because they have some of the classic sad boy heavy hitters mixed in with a few current contenders. If you like one of these guys, you'll probably listen to the rest of them.
Hey,
You also
I like
never got more than
Radiohead.
5 laps
I don't
on the
listen to
fitness
the
run
rest of
pacer
them.
test.
Weezer.
Radiohead.
So I think
Alright.
that Radiohead is probably the quintessential pure virgin band.
Yeah.
It's too wide of a fan base to be too towards neurotypical or towards
I'm a
autistic.
virgin,
So I'm gonna say
guys.
it's
They
like
said
pure
it. They said it, not me.
virgin.
Weezer.
I've seen guys on all ends of the spectrum, no pun intended, listening to this band. So I actually want to put them
Come
purely
on.
in the middle. It's
Come
pure-
on, dude. Weezer is good. Okay. I don't listen to them. But Radiohead, I don't listen to it for clout. I don't listen to it because, I want to be, cool, edgy, sad. I mean, I am sad like all the time, depressed, this kind of thing, but not because I listen to Radiohead or vice versa. I don't listen to Radiohead because of that. I just think they have a lot of good, well produced, authentic sounding music. Now, there's some flops, of course, but I mean, listen to How to Disappear Completely. Anyone would listen to that. Perfect music. So
form
good.
of down bad music.
It's not like what I normally listen to, right? Like I listen to post-hardcore, like this kind of thing, emo music, But let's see.
Elliott Smith, that is a difficult one. I'd say if I was to put Elliott Smith anywhere, so he's definitely further down on the neurotypical sphere, leaning towards virgin. It's very intimate and emotional, but not so emotional to the point where it's like, you'd have to be some
You could
kind
be
of
like a well-developed person.
Exactly.
My first instinct
Okay, so
is going to be towards
I've never listened to Elliott Smith, so I actually have no take on that. Tame Impala, I've listened to like some of their stuff. Sorry, it's not really my thing. I see it has a value. It's a good indie piece. Very nice sounding, just not
the
like
left x-axis,
what I listen
so a
to,
bit towards male manipulator, because I think we've all known a guy who is a Tame Impala fan and he's really eager to impress a girl by telling him that Tame Impala is actually just one guy.
If I was to put Tame Impala anywhere, I'd put Tame Impala towards the neurotypical sphere. Definitely male.
I see, yeah. That's what I said. Like they're indie. One guy. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that actually. I knew they were indie band, but I know
Manipulator
it's one guy.
because
That's cool.
I can't imagine
Now I'm gonna
like
impress
anybody
women
that
by telling
autistic
them that.
listening to Tame Impala. It's not like their fans
Right.
are like total
Just
like you know.
joking.
The biggest losers are like socially inadequate.
But then there's also like a lot of songs about getting cucked and you know getting embarrassed because someone took your girl or whatever it might be.
And you would have to have a girl in the first place to get her stolen. Therefore, we're going
Exactly.
to lean towards neurotypical male manipulator.
All right.
Panchico. When I really think about Panchico,
Don't know
I just think about
Panchico.
being online.
4chan.
4chan,
Well,
yeah.
they got big off of 4chan, so we're
Exactly.
definitely gonna be on.
That's
the
probably
right
why I
side of
don't
this
know
because of
them,
that.
'cause I'm
I
not-
don't know
I'm not a
very many
4chan dweller.
neurotypical People
Surprising,
that
right?
know who this is.
You look at me, you're
I'd
like,
say
yeah, that
that's
guy.
about a good spot.
And there we
Watch
go.
us
There's Loser Core.
or
Found it
it's on
on
4chan.
TikTok. All of
Yeah.
these artists have been around way before TikTok, but it seems like they've all been swamped with new
That's
gens who found them on
depressing.
TikTok, as the name applies. If you use TikTok at all, you
See, this is depressing because like TikTok is painful, and seeing like some of these bands on here, it just hurts a little bit. Like Duster's pretty good, you know, but I mean, you know, if you discover music this way, that's cool. You know, I'm happy you're discovering new music. You know, I can't really complain about that. Just to me, you know, it's like, damn. I know a lot of people who only listen to music because of TikTok. And like I have specific times in my memory where I'm like, "Hey, you should listen to this band." And they're like, "Okay." They're like, "It's not really for me." Then all of a sudden, big on TikTok. Damn, this song's so good. I love this song. Wow, I can't believe I have never heard this before. It's such a deep cut. I'm like, "Bitch, I told you about this shit long time ago, and here you are now all of a sudden. Oh, it's cool because fucking TikTok. Fuck you."
probably seen most of these artists use as an
I'm
audio.
just
Alex G.
exaggerating to be funny.
You know, in my experience,
Alex
I have
G
met
is
some
all right.
male manipulators that are really into Alex G. I know there's a lot of girls who said they've been manipulated by guys who listen to Alex G. I'm not guilty here, just saying that, putting that out into the
Yeah,
world.
me either.
Because it's TikTok, which is a very normie-friendly platform, I'm gonna give a slight edge to neurotypicals.
And while there might be like a little bit of autism or a little bit of the tism in the fan base, it still I think leans more towards the neurotypical side.
I don't understand that like rating spectrum. A little bit ableist, guys. Gonna cancel them.
Gorillas, their fan base now, knowing how much of like a real crazy fandom they are, and it's not like something that male manipulators listen to. You know,
No,
again,
definitely not.
Yeah, I feel like Gorillaz is very normy in a way. They're good. I'm not saying they're not good. Don't get me wrong, but you know, it's common. A lot of people listen to it, and that's not a bad thing. They're good. You know, I don't really listen to Gorillaz anymore. I kind of got out of that stage. I liked some of their songs, and you know, they're pretty cool. You know, I find it interesting.
or at least in the Gorillas fandom, where it's like very nerdy and based off of like something animated. You're not gonna
Yeah.
have like a lot of like male manipulators. It seems. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I'm wrong on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, no one's
I would
gonna
agree.
walk around and
It's
brag
not very
about being a
male manipulator music, and yeah, you don't really brag about liking Gorillaz. You know, you might wear some merch. That's cool. I appreciate that. You know, they got some interesting artwork. You know, they got some interesting storytelling and stuff. Don't mind it, but yeah, it's definitely not something, you know, a manipulator is gonna be like, "Hey, I listen to Gorillaz. Am I quirky and cool now? Like, can we have sex?" No, it's not like that.
Gorillaz fan for some sort of social attention or clout, you know,
No.
especially with women.
That actually reminds me. I saw a couple in the
funny how
mall
they
once
said
that had
that.
matching Gorillas cosplays, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's
So
cool.
I guess if you're a Gorillas
That's
fan, you
actually
do have
cool.
a chance with a girl. I think we could honestly put it right in the middle of the line for autistic, neither leaning towards male manipulator or virgin. Arctic Monkeys.
We're definitely going to favor strongly to male manipulator,
Agree.
and I'm going to say fairly strongly to
Interesting.
neurotypical.
Yeah,
as well.
100%.
You know, I listened to Arctic Monkeys for a while, but or like a while back, not like a while. Like I didn't listen to them for a long period of time, but I found like you guys are gonna be mad at me if you like Arctic Monkeys, but I felt like it was a little repetitive. I'm sorry, you know, like I think I like their sound. Like their sound is cool, but like it's very tired after a long time. You know, you listen to a lot of their songs, and honestly, you could probably confuse the names between them because they're just like so similar. You know, there's obviously like the outliers, of course. I think they're pretty cool. I like their sound. The vocalist, really good.
Because
And
like
you know,
anything
the
that's
band
gonna have a
itself,
big
really good.
female
But
fan base is also gonna have a pretty decently sized male manipulator fan base that's kind of leeching off of that fandom.
I can't really imagine any.
I don't know the demographics of the Arctic Monkeys fandom, so I don't really know. Maybe they're right. Maybe there is a really big women audience for Arctic Monkeys and thus prime male manipulator music. But like, I feel like again, it's kind of almost like Gorillas. Like, it's not something you really brag about. Like, oh, I listen to Arctic Monkeys. You know, I met a few Arctic Monkeys like die-hard fans. Like, they fucking love it. It's their shit. Good for them, but they weren't like pieces of shit or anything. They're actually really cool people. So I don't know.
listening to Arctic Monkeys.
Guess we'll see what
Backseat
they-
Lovers.
Big
Oh, that's
TikTok
it.
music, like a quarter
Never heard of
billion
them.
streams on their number one song. It's for guys that are indie, but also are like car guys. Tons of male manipulators.
probably why I
so
haven't
it's
heard
gonna be
it.
firm into male manipulator and
Not a
pretty
big car guy.
strong into
Sorry.
neurotypical as well. There's nothing hyper masculine about it that would attract autistic folk. You know, massive female fan base, just like Arctic
That's
Monkeys.
supposed to mean
Pixies.
This guy,
Pixies. Okay, Pixies. I fucking love the Pixies. I learned how to play some of their music on guitar. You know, they're really, really some fundamental music. You know, I felt like they're a stepping stone to like the later types of music I listen to. So like I have respect for them. You know, I don't listen to them like regularly. You know, every once in a while I'll get a song of theirs like in my head. I'm like, I'll listen to that like right now, and I will. But it's not like I would consider myself like a big fan of them. I just think, you know, like liking their music when I was younger laid the foundation for like my music taste now. And I feel like they've had a huge inspiration on like the music scene. Like yeah, I feel like
he's Tyler Durden, definitely on the autism
Everything I just
side.
said.
You
I don't
may
know what
have
else to
watched a
say.
couple Fight Club AMVs before, but it's still
this guy has Deftones on his shirt. Deftones. Male manipulator territory. Just kidding. Just kidding.
that kind of indie 90s
I fucking
male
love
manipulator
Deftones too,
sound.
but
So
I
this
don't
might
listen
be
to
our
them that
first
much.
candidate that's going to be on the male manipulator but autistic side. What are you thinking?
The one person I knew who liked, I'm not going to name them and I have no hate for them.
Mm-hmm.
The one person I knew that really liked the Pixies,
Oh, his shirt's
way
a
before
meme.
the
Never
TikTok
mind.
trend and everything, they were way more on the side of Virgin and not so much autistic.
First of all, piecing this together, I'm gonna lean towards autistic.
calling me out.
And I'm gonna lean towards male manipulator because I feel like that's gonna be a trend we're gonna see with indie in general, especially one as generic as the Pixies. What if we compromise? We pull it back a bit, but we still favor autistic.
I think that's good. I think
Yeah.
that seems to be pretty comprehensive. So Duster,
All right, so Duster, this one's gonna be a
Male
speed run.
manipulator.
Boom.
perfect.
Okay.
Enlightened hip hop enjoyer.
That's
These
fair.
are for the people who
I
want
guess
to
like
feel like
I
they're
wouldn't
cool for
I wouldn't imagine there's a huge women fan base at Duster. I'm sure there is, but like I guess it's not something people will brag about.
listening to alternative
Death
rap while
groups.
not moving out of the mainstream whatsoever. Kanye or Ye.
Okay, MF
look, at
Doom
the
is
end of the
really
day,
cool.
No matter how you feel about Kanye, I think it would be really
He's
just
fucking
honestly
sick.
fair to put him right smack dab in the middle. Or we could favor
I
neurotypical
don't know
due to
about that.
popularity for sure. He still has
I don't
pull
know
over
about
things
that.
like fashion
Yeah.
and things like, you know, different other artists. I mean, he's put a lot of other artists on, so
You have to
No
be
one
fucking.
on the north.
When was this made? Because you have to be fucking crazy. To 2 months ago, you have to be fucking crazy to actually like say you're a Kanye West fan. Like if this is something you brag about, you're fucking mental. Because this guy was like, I love those certain people from Germany in 1945 and a certain leader of that group. That guy's fucking nuts. So I don't know if I agree. You have to be fucking.
North side of this is
Something-
gonna have a
something's
full-on
going on.
culture on mass consumer
like
normie
Kanye.
culture.
Death Grips.
Sorry if you
So
like Kanye.
obviously we're gonna favor autism when it comes to Death Crips and Peggy. Probably gonna be over in the Virgin category because again Fantano core, Mew, 4chan core. No one
Actually
who's a
don't really
girl is
know
gonna be
Death
impressed
Grips
by
too
you knowing
much,
Death
like-
Grips.
And
I
even
think
the
maybe
girls
I've
that I've
encountered
met
some
that
of
like
their
Death-
music, but like I don't remember any of it, honestly.
Death Grips. They act like Guy Virgins essentially, in a sense. I agree with you.
If I remember, their music was kind of like more comedic sounding. I could
Okay,
be wrong.
perfect. Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's pretty soft. Yeah.
MF Doom. Oh wow, MF Doom. Honestly, nowhere near male manipulator territory. It's not even like his fans are necessarily that autistic.
I do
that
want
autistic.
I want a virgin pull though. He makes concept albums.
The people who like his concept albums aren't even that autistic per se. It's like someone who's neurotypical who's just like really nerdy about music could just get themselves into the music.
Okay.
Tyler,
That's me, you know, just really nerdy about music. MF Doom, cool motherfucker, badass dude. You know, his lyrics funny as fuck sometimes, really well written. Well, he understands his way around the English language. Okay.
the creator.
Every guy, even guys that weren't autistic, went through a Tyler phase in middle school. So we're definitely going to be pulled over into neurotypical. They're also influencing fashion as well. You know, mass consumer normie culture. But I want to pull a bit towards virgin, especially
is
if it's
pretty
the
a normie
earlier
culture.
like horrorcore threesome line. The journey of Tyler is also the journey of his fans going from edgelord in middle school to being
Zest Lord.
I don't
Does
know
say
much about his
slash
early
odd future.
career. I just
I'm feeling
know
a bit more
like
male manipulator.
about
Not even
him more
because you're gonna
recently
impress
because of
and-
you know, I've been around people that really like him. I've listened to some of his music. Not my cup of tea, but you know, if you like it, that's cool. You know, I respect anyone that likes any music. You know, it's your taste. We're all different. Just not what I'm into.
an
Sorry.
alt girl that's into rap, but just that type of guy probably has a few other tricks up his sleeves when it comes to finessing the dating pool.
I could totally see that.
I feel like it's more in the
So
middle
I'm
or
gonna do
slightly
a
to the
slight
left.
favor towards male manipulator.
Yeah.
Frank Ocean.
So Frank Ocean, I think this one's pretty obvious. Strong pull towards neurotypical, pretty strong pull towards male manipulator as well.
There's a lot of songs he has about being heartbroken, having an ex, relationships. It's really not in virgin territory. They wouldn't be able to relate.
I'm not the biggest fan of his.
What more proof do you need? Our resident autistic virgin. Speaking of autistic virgin, if you want to get our shirts, click the link in the comments. It's there.
Neopunkfm.com, neopunkfm.com,
Yes,
merch
I
plug.
figured that out a
Swedish
little too late,
K-hole.
but their shirts
Look, if
were,
you listen to one or more of these artists,
were ironic.
you're either really cringe or really based. We'll let you figure
I've
out
never
which
heard
one
of
applies
these-
to which.
these
I
bands,
kind of want
to
to
be
tackle
real.
all these at once. They all connect with each other. I think
Cemetery
it's gonna be
sounds
a cascading effect.
Almost familiar,
duh.
but
Toi.
And why exactly are you going to put him there?
So Young Lean is the coolest out of these. Young Lean had the most mass appeal. Still heavy
Still
internet
don't know
core,
that.
heavy online core, big on TikTok. Blade is a second order consequence of Young Lean, and Cemetery is a third order consequence
Gotta look
of
up
Young Lean
Cemetery.
anyway.
Yeah, it becomes increasingly more autistic and more niche and
yeah.
more virgin. Yeah. Beep boop. You're an alt kid that was raised on the internet, but racing games and the SSX Tricky
Yeah, I've
soundtrack left
never
an impression on you.
heard of
and
Cemetery,
you've definitely
actually.
tried or at least have been offered ketamine once. Aphex Twin. If we're talking about the kids that like him today, it's going to be way more autistic leaning.
okay. So this is like hyperpop, I'm guessing, because I see 100 gex. Don't know any of the other ones. I know 100 gex. Not a big fan. Not a big fan at all. I think their music is more comedic than anything. But if we're talking hyperpop, there is hyperpop that I actually really like. Breakins. Breakins is fucking insane. He mixes hyperpop with math rock and emo almost. I mean, I would say there's some of that rap kind of shit going on there, like internet rap. I don't know how to classify that. Hyperpop. It's hyperpop, but it uses like a lot of metal and math rock influences, and his production quality is really cool. I love it. So
IDM, breakcore, breakbeat, whatever, jungle. And the kind of fans of that are just way more into the sphere of autism. But knowing that he is really becoming like a trend with a lot of normies, I've met a lot of girls who don't even know the first thing about Aphex Twin, which is okay. He's been popular for so long. I'd put Aphex Twin
I don't
above
really know them
Panchico
either.
to the left of Blade. We're high up into the sphere of autism. There is a virgin
Not gonna have a lot of
aspect,
takes
but
here.
knowing how his
I wonder what they
audience
say about 100 gex, so I'm just gonna skip forward.
bad as Symmetry.
Don't know
It's gotta
Machine
go
Girl,
far
so
over there. 100 Gex.
So when I think 100 Gex, the last thing on my mind is neurotypical. We're at a 10.0 on the TISM scale. Out of nearly everything we have on here, I want to say they're pure autism. Not like other boys. This group is for boys who aren't like other boys because they listen to
I know 3. I don't know Clario. The other 3, they're decent. They're interesting music, you know, they have interesting style. Again, not my style of music, not my personal favorite. I think they're all really good, wonderful musicians. I actually saw Marina and the Diamonds, or just Marina live. She's awesome. She's very energetic, very fun. The music, cool, very fun. So I see why there's a big audience for it. Not like not something I listen to, but you know, encountering it, it's very fun music, and I know some of the songs. So
teeny bopper music.
Lana
in order
Del
to
Rey,
lower the
more
defenses of
emotional
surrounding
kind of
women.
thing.
If you look up Coquette Soft Boy on
I feel like this is probably going to be more on the male manipulator side of things. That's where I'm guessing they're putting this, because I feel like there's definitely people that really do like this kind of music, males, but I feel like it's definitely prime targets for like manipulators, unfortunately.
Pinterest, you'll find this guy. I think that all these artists are going to go pretty much in the same spot.
Completely agree. Completely
Yeah.
agree.
Phoebe
Okay, I
Bridgers,
see.
right there behind her, strong male manipulator.
Yeah, I was
Claro-
calling it. I called it.
Claro
I
is gonna
called
be
that
less
shit.
neurotypical. It's still gonna be heavy on the male manipulator. Marina, I'm gonna say above Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glasses and Screaming. These are all bands that feature a singer that
Yeah. I know all of these fans. Not very big fan of Car Seat Headrest. Don't really listen to their stuff, but I know of them. Mom Jeans. Again, I have a few feelings about them. I like some of their music. I feel like some of it's just a little too on the I don't know how to put it. It's just not my favorite of this kind of music. Modern Baseball, above Mom Jeans. Still really good, some really good songs. You know, it's basically like the whiny kind of music, but it's cool. American Football though tops all of them. Musically, fantastic, fucking amazing. Lyrically, really interesting. Everything about it, everything about them, they're really cool. I love American Football.
wears glasses and screams about girls and their feelings in relation to said girls. There are a lot more bands we could have
Very
added to this,
accurate.
but let's be real. They're all the same.
Jank.
First of all, strong
Jank's fucking. It hurts to say, but they're amazing. If you know the lore behind Jank and Panucci's Pizza, specifically Lou Diamond, I'm so sorry. That shit is so depressing because the music is so fucking good. In fact, I'd say it's above American Football. I think it's the best that this scene has ever seen. And that's unfortunate because Lou Diamond is, from what I've heard, I don't really know to the extent of any of that stuff, like what actually happened. You know, I wasn't there. But he's a fucking piece of shit. Allegedly. I mean, all of his bands kind of dissolved because of it. And then he like released this project, Fail Better, Heal Faster, I think. Which was really, again, it was like Panucci's Pizza Part 2. It was really fucking good, but it was more of like a kind of fucking sympathy album, you know, like after all these allegations came out, and like it kind of makes it have this nasty sour taste in your mouth. So definitely my least favorite of those projects, mainly because it's just Lou Diamond, but that guy was prolific, and just kind of unfortunate, you know.
wrong on the autism because there are other things that are 15. We are going to have
It's like what's their name? The station where the act becomes the part of growing up. What is that? Who sings that? Uh, Jesus Christ. Brand New. Brand New. That was a different song. Jesus Christ. I was singing, I fucking forgot. But Brand New. Really fucking amazing. But if you know, you know.
Have to lean a
Terrible.
bit further to the left towards Male Manipulator, because there are other things that are 15, 16 that they don't nearly have much of a problem associating with. I'm feeling another cascading effect. This is almost like reading tea leaves.
The Brits.
Dying the life of a true Brexit geezer.
Okay, The Smiths is amazing. The Cure. Joy Division. Don't really care for. The Cure is alright. Smiths, though? Fuck yeah. Fuck. I fuck with The Smiths. It's one of my favorite songs growing up. Not songs, bands growing up as a kid. And, you know, just as I get older, it just ages better and better. But yeah, what I was going to say about this list, I agree. All these are heavy on the male manipulator end of things. I mean, some people I think even call it male manipulator music, which is unfortunate 'cause I don't think I'm a manipulator, guys, and I like this music. It's interesting. You know, it's raw. I like the raw sound of this shit. Like, say what you want about Mom Jeans. I feel like I'm not a big fan of their stuff, but it's raw, you know? They're just a couple guys just fucking going in there. You know, you feel what they're feeling when they're singing it. Sometimes it's miss, but, you know, it's good.
In fact,
I
this
like
is almost
it.
like reading tea leaves.
The
It's
Brits.
kind of my music taste is raw. I like things that are gritty. I like, if you know outsider music, like William Johnston, is that his name? Let's see. Hi, how are you? Daniel Johnston. See, I'm a poser, but no, Daniel Johnston. His music is great.
Dying the life of a true Brexit geezer.
What's the
'Cause it's
opposite
raw.
of
I like that.
Radiohead? The Smiths. Pure male manipulator. They are the ultimate trope in male manipulator.
Why?
music.
Why
Morrissey
is it male manipulator though? I feel like it's not really something that you brag about. It's not like something like, oh, you know, I listen to the Smiths. I want you. You know, it's not like that kind of music. I feel like maybe. I don't know.
pioneered the game. He wrote the blueprint on male manipulation via music. For The Cure, what do you think? I'm feeling more
I'm just trying to understand what he means by that. Like, how the Smiths is male manipulator music. Like, I feel like it's more in the middle between male manipulator and virgin. You know, like, I feel like it's more normal. I don't know. I know it's a little weird. Two lovers entwine, pass me by, and heaven knows I'm miserable now. So good. But maybe there's some history about the Smiths or the lead singer. I don't know. Maybe he's a piece of shit. I don't know. I know Nirvana at MTV, or not MTV, but like the music awards, he sung like the Smiths to protest. It was fun. I'm not gonna get
more
into that. We're gonna watch the
manipulator than
video.
Alex G. Teetering a bit towards neurotypical, because no matter what people on the internet say, you don't have to be super autistic to understand the musings of Robert Smith. Joy Division, I think this one obviously is a bit closer towards autism. I mean, if you just look at any video of Ian Curtis singing, that would scare a normie. They'd be like, wait, no, why is he doing that? Why does he look like that? That's weird.
Yeah, I've seen
No, I
this
don't get it. I don't
logo
understand.
before.
BPD Quadfecta. This one is for the ladies out there. Or
Mitski's pretty cool. TV Girl. This song by TV Girl is really good. Not Allowed. That's like the only song I know from them. Grimes, not a big fan of. I think she's a talented musician. Don't know Hole at
Really,
all.
anyone with the Lexapro prescription. Okay, so after doing some careful
Yikes.
thought and consideration, we're gonna be talking exclusively about the female fans for this one group, this one category. Okay, so for Hole, now that we've updated this strong into female manipulator, because they are known as the female manipulator band in the same way that the Smiths are known as the male manipulator band.
Mitski would lean
I didn't know that about the
towards,
Smiths.
autistic. I think it would be to the right of car seat headrest. As for TV Girl,
You know what they say about TV Girl, actually?
what did they say about TV Girl?
They say TV Girl is female Frank Ocean. So I'm going to put them next to Frank Ocean.
I've never actually heard that before, but if that's
Well,
the case, I mean,
I just said it now for the first time. So remember, you and I helped move roommate had on
like, I think Mitski.
the same level. Deftones and or horny. These bands are either loud or horny.
That's funny. I like how I called them out earlier in the Deftones shirt, and here we go. I love Deftones are good, guys. I love their music. I'm not like shitting on them, but it's just like, yeah.
Some
anyways.
are both.
I like these bands.
Deftones. I'm gonna say they're as neurotypical as Backseat Lovers because they're also like platinum selling artists that have been headlining festivals consistently for the past
Yeah, they're
I don't
really
know, 20
popular.
years.
I think just the fact that we've gotten this deep into this sphere between male manipulator and neurotypical, it totally makes sense.
Typo negative. We're gonna take ourselves back to our roots here. Autistic virgin. Autistic because you're not gonna see a lot of normies that are into actual goth music. The people who listen to Deftones, the
Yeah.
neurotypicals that listen to Deftones are like, oh, goth Deftones girl. They don't even know about typo negative. So we gotta reset that compass. We gotta reset that scale back up to the positive towards autistic. Within the niche of actual real goth, typo negative could be considered a male manipulator band. But if we're looking in general, you would
Interesting.
picture a more virgin type of dude. How do you feel about this placement right here?
I feel like
Bloody
they're gonna say the
Valentine.
same
You
thing about these
discovered
guys.
shoegaze yesterday for the first time. Autistic virgin. Slint,
Don't actually really know
cascaded
much
up a
about this
bit.
band.
bit more autistic, bit more virgin. People are uncomfortable with spoken word.
The Thes. This crowd is a bit older, but just as
Strokes pretty cool.
nerdy.
See what they say
Neuro
about the
music,
Strokes.
not in a cool way, but it's still very accessible, strong, neurotypical, but still virgin because they're just kind of lame people. They're just kind of lame. They're like people that wear ill-fitting leather jackets and they're probably like 35, 38. They're still talking about like the
Not
shows they went
35,
to when
not
they were young.
38.
They're fixated on the
I
idea
think
of
they're
being a
pretty
rock
cool.
star.
I like the Strokes.
Maybe they
I
work
think
like
their
a
music's
middle
cool.
management job.
You think about Julian Casablancas,
I'm gonna skip
like,
the rest of
he
these
seems
'cause
like
I
a
don't
male
really know them.
manipulator type character, right?
It's for me to agree with that.
Tell. Honestly, right into the cluster of Duster, Death Grips, JPEG
Really?
Mafia territory. Yeah,
But the music is so accessible. When I think like
makes sense putting them above Tame Impala, artistic sphere. So yeah,
bonus, canceled honorable mentions.
Yeah, brand new. Yep, mentioned it. They're assholes. Fuck those dudes. That's funny. I like the end. Yeah, no, that's like that's their list. You know, you heard some of my grievances with it. You heard some of my okay, yeah, I understand that. You know, that's my nuanced take on the whole situation.
there are a lot of
Watch some more of their videos. I think these guys are good. You know, I'm gonna subscribe. Huge shout out to you guys. I know it's crazy to have such a big famous YouTuber like me with 0 viewers, 0 live watchers talking to the camera to give you, you know, a subscriber. But you're welcome.
annoying, cringe, and antisocial music fan bases out there. So we're going to figure out which fan base is the worst using a tournament bracket, where 64 different artists will be competing to see who has the worst fan base.
This bracket is pretty big, with each genre and lots of
Oh, let's see. Some names I know on here. Sunny Day Roast. So this is the emo territory. LCDs. That's funny. Breakins. My boy Breakins better not win the worst music fan base. Love that guy. Corn, Ghost. See, I'm rooting for these people. Then I realize this is like the worst fan bases. So I don't want any of the people that I'm big fans of to be in the worst fan base, because then I'm a terrible person. Then I'm part of the worst fan base, and like I can't have that.
artists
I'll have to
choose
stop
from.
listening
So
to
we
the music
decided
because
to
these
organize
random guys on the internet think I'm the worst.
each category of the first round by the kind of person we think would listen to these artists.
Bedwetters Club.
Loser core. Radiohead versus Nirvana. This is a really tricky one. It has to do with the fact that you can buy the smiley face merch at any Walmart or Target in the country. There is no average Nirvana fan because everyone's a Nirvana fan. So everyone is pretty much the status quo. I'm gonna say this. Radiohead equals no bitches.
Weezer versus My
Fair.
Bloody Valentine.
Baby's first shoegaze
My Bloody
versus
Music for babies.
there's this characteristic that Weezer fans have where they're self-hating, self-deprecating. Haha,
Okay,
no one
maybe-
hates Weezer more than Weezer fans. I can't stand that shit, bro. It's just an evolution of that 2013 Reddit humor, of that Reddit millennial humor.
fair.
They'll make a dumb joke and go, I hate myself.
I think that alone makes you want to push Weezer into being the winner
Yeah.
here. The Smiths versus The Cure. I see the Smiths as being the obvious male manipulator
Right.
music, and then The Cure
As I said in the last
as
video.
the girl that's being manipulated.
Picturing a lot of Cure fans, and that's actually scary accurate.
Not making it again like a female thing, but it's like they're all submissive dudes and they're all just kind of shy and like a little bit nerdy. The Cure versus the Smiths.
Yeah, Smiths are gonna win. The Strokes versus video game OSTs / military marches.
Video
Do you
game
go with
OSTs.
Either A, the kid who's always bumming a cig off of you and hides the fact that his parents are rich, or classic JROTC kid. There's this one JROTC kid that was in my history class. He was
Video
like a
game
really
OSTs.
animated, wiry, squirmy kind of guy. If we were watching Rocky, I think it had something
You see like the fucking comments in like video game OSTs, like Kirby music, bro. Like, yikes.
to do with the Cold War. And he would do this thing, like during the last fight scene, he sat in the back of class and he would like mimic all of Rocky's moves at 100% intensity. By the time the movie was over, he was like huffing and puffing and out of and out of breath.
It's no competition.
Go white boy, go. Really interesting first matchup for the go white boy go category. I can think of a Cardi or Opium
Kanye
fan,
West.
and it's like, oh, Black Hellcat, Asian girls, Opium, if looks could kill. I can't really do that with Kanye. There's no bizarre identity built off of being a Kanye fan like there is with Cardi, and like, oh, he's trying to be Cardi. Oh, he's a meat rider. He's trying to be Cardi, you know?
I agree. Cardi's the clear winner here.
Yabujin
Okay.
versus Suicide Boys. We both saw Suicide Boys when they were in town. It was as if we went back in time and saw Slipknot when they were at their peak. That's pretty much what the fan base looks like, right? So those people can be cringe without knowing that they're cringe. But with Yabujin, those people have a lot of potential to be cringe because of how online they are. But with that
I don't know
comes a sort of
Yabujin.
self-awareness. When it comes to Suicide Boys, they're a lot less likely to be self-aware of how cringe
It's like
they
a
are.
Japanese
Yeah, you
word. Hold on. Jin is like Jin. It's like person. Yeah. I need my Japanese keyboard. Is this actually a word? No. That's my imagination.
A strong argument for Suicide Boys then, yeah.
I would give it to Suicide Boys. Blade or Yeet? It's been said that Blade hates the way his fan base like makes cringe memes about him and like always calls him gay. We've seen both of these artists. When we saw Yeet, people were like doing the whole Push Pit 175 thing,
Don't really know
stepping
these
on
guys.
each other before the show. Work. Go to Yeet's one of my
Skipping.
And Little Tracy. And kind of
Yeah, I don't
coming
know.
rubbing their consistent being just really annoying. They're really into meme about the
Okay,
cool times.
Tool and Korn.
versus Corn, baby. This is gonna be
I don't really know. Like they both kind of have the same fan base. I feel like.
nuts. I know the
'Cause
meme
I like both of
behind
them.
Tool is that like all of these guys are just really annoying. They're really into the Fibonacci sequence, math and music and DMT, Joe Rogan type beat, right? So
That is a very, very common thing with Tool, actually. Like stereotype kind of thing. Like, because they're visuals mostly. Like you look at, Tool's videos. I mean, they have one of the strangest music videos I've ever seen. And that's cool. I like that, but yeah, I definitely understand why there's some some drug enjoyers who are big fans
So
of them.
in reality, I feel like all the Tool fans I've met are actually chill people. We have to figure out
Yeah.
what kind of Korn fan we're talking about here. Are we talking about a Korn fan that loves like their classics, like Life is Peachy?
Someone who today can say, I like Korn's music. I go back and I listen to Korn's music. I really enjoy it.
Me.
40 something, like working kind of like a blue collar job. They're like,
Yeah.
man, I freaking love Korn.
Yeah.
You know, I love like their
Fair.
new stuff. I've been blasting
Those
it.
guys are kind of cool too. So it's
They're probably more cringe than as cringe as a Tool fan could be.
well, I mean, can you really blame
I'd
a
disagree.
46-year-old dude that he's cringe? You know.
But still, nonetheless, they exist. I think Korn would probably have to win.
Ghost versus
Fuck you.
System of a
I'm
Down.
sure.
I've met a few Ghost fans before. They've all been super cringe. However, the System of a Down people, they love talking about the Armenian genocide. They don't even know what it is. Oh, the Iraq War. It was like really bad, dude.
They'd probably say it more like, the Iraq War. Yeah, I think Ghost has got to win, yeah.
Deftones versus Hoobastank.
Dude, I don't even know of any Hoobastank fans in 2023. I'm not going to lie to you. I think the comments from our Deftones video say it all. You know, I've known about Deftones forever. They've always been good, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, we know that, but that doesn't mean they didn't
Mid-tones.
gain traction because of
Yeah.
TikTok also. And it's like, gosh, dude.
They act so superior about it. If you're over the
That's-
age of
that
25,
shouldn't be that funny.
you are not welcome on this channel.
Unless you're buying our shirt. NeoPunkFM.com. Get your shirts. Male Manipulator shirt, Autistic Virgin shirt. It's like candy. You got to buy it. It's so good. You can't get enough.
People often talk about gatekeeping artists that get big off the internet. Deftones, they were obviously big before the internet, but because of TikTok, they've gotten big again. I don't think we have to worry about Deftones being gatekept because their old head fans are like a natural
I guess,
immune
sure, it's
system
just so
against anyone else that wants to get into Deftones because they're so insufferable.
Deftones
Go buy the
gotta
merch.
win here.
Meshuggah versus
Funny.
Megadeth. I don't like metal that has a lot of gimmicks attached to it. When I think Megadeth, I think like, oh, like aliens, Area 51. Oh, and the government sucks, dude. Every metal band has like a gimmick now. They're either like aliens or goblins where they shoot green slime into the crowd like it's the Kids' Choice Awards. Just make good music. When I think Megadeth fan,
That's
I think
funny.
a dude that's had 2 or 3 marriages under his belt and he still is mad at his first ex-wife and he'll do something like drive across state lines to a new gas station he's never been to before and write her number on the bathroom stall. So I'm going with Megadeth.
Hyperstar.
I didn't know that was the thing.
Aphex Twin versus 100 Gex.
100 Gex
100
fans,
Gex
ADHD
win.
goblins that they kind of jump around at 20 miles per hour and they bunny hop like in Gary's mod except in real life. Bottom line is this: the worst thing that an Aphex Twin fan is going to
Listening to their music, that's exactly what you would think. Just fucking be hopping around in real
do
life.
is
That's
be
hilarious.
annoying about how they knew them before they became a TikTok meme and how and getting cred from that. Now, the worst thing that a 100 Gex fan would do is carry around one of those like sets of toy, like those like play car keys they give to toddlers and like wave those around in your face.
Or a Sensory Slug.
Would have to give this one to 100 Gex. Sophie and Bjork.
So even though they are a
No,
good
no,
artist,
okay.
it's still one of those things where it's like, I'm going to let you know that I listened to Bjork, even probably back in the day. And
Really is versus Sound System versus Machine Girl.
with LCD Sound System, Indie Sleaze, they remember going to gentrified coffee shops in their inner city, the infinity scarves on men and women, the annoying hipster millennial type, versus a Machine Girl fan who's like a young Zoomer.
Chronically online.
I'd still rather hang out with a aged millennial hipster type who's into LCD Sound System.
At least the hipster millennial has life experience.
Exactly.
I think we're going to start seeing a
Machine
trend
Girl.
here. The more
That's more
online
toxic.
an artist pulls, the further
True.
up they're going to be getting in this
True.
bracket. That's my prediction right now.
It
Very
comes
fair.
down to Machine Girl.
Okay, Break-Ins versus Crystal Castles. A lot of normie girls listen to Break-Ins. It's really like baby's first hyperpop.
Crystal Castles, I've known
Fuck you.
fans of them before they were even popping off on TikTok again. Oh, sorry. Here, I'm showing my old head status over here. But their fans did consist of annoying alt girls in the past, and it does seem like they still continue to consist of annoying alt girls. Crystal Castles is what I'm leaning to.
Yeah, Crystal Castle's worst fan base.
Bedwetters
Yeah.
Love Club.
I like
When you think
Break-Ins.
American football
So
fan
good he didn't
versus
win
Joyce Manor fan, what
Toxicity
type of
Award.
dude do you think of?
I'm just going to go off
Joyce
here.
Manor.
He's in college, makes
More
jokes
toxic.
about his mental illness, not as a way to healthily
Okay,
hurt
wait,
the
hold on.
Yeah,
Let's see
Crystal
this,
Castle.
because
You do-
I think he's
Worst
calling me
fan
out.
base.
Bedwetters Love Club.
When you think American football fan versus Joyce Manor fan, what type of dude do you think of?
I'm just going to go off here. He's in college, makes jokes about his mental illness, not as a way to healthily cope with it, but as a way to avoid his problems.
Right. Or to get girls.
And if he gets the opportunity to get with a hot girl, which is totally possible, it's
Yeah.
not like that he hasn't been able to do that. He's gotten lucky once or twice.
Yeah.
He'll completely not be able to perform in bed,
Right.
or he'll last very quickly. The girl will end up spreading rumors about him to the rest of the alt girls on campus. Therefore,
Ruining his reputation.
yes, ruining his reputation among the other alt girls that would even give a guy who listens to Joyce Manor or American
Yeah.
football a chance in the first place. Likes to bring over his
Yikes.
other friends and work on, a project about Midwest emo
Yeah.
that barely just takes off. Maybe gets a few downloads on Bandcamp here or there. So
There's 90% overlap.
It's my
between these
dream,
fan
baby.
bases, but that
Get a few downloads on Bandcamp for some shitty music I make. That's all I want in life. But I'm too. I almost fell right into their trap. I almost made a self-deprecating mental health joke. I'll say it anyways. I'm too depressed to do that shit. Sorry.
percent extra. If you're into American football, there's really no guarantee that you know who Joyce Manor is. But if you know who Joyce Manor is, you definitely know American football. Because they're a bit
Facts.
more online, they're a bit more aggravating, they get on your nerves a bit more. So I'm gonna go with Joyce Manor.
My Chemical
Facts.
Romance versus Sunny Day Real Estate.
I think the issue
My Chem, unfortunately, is more toxic. I like both of them. Oh, no, I'm wrong. Sunny Day Real Estate fans? Okay, yeah, I fucking love Sunny Day Real Estate, but like, a dude on Reddit, they're so loud. Like, sometimes I'll like go to Reddit for like music suggestions and stuff and see what like people are saying. And like, everyone's like, oh, Sunny Day Real Estate, going to town on them. Like, almost to an unhealthy amount. Like, I agree, they're fucking amazing. They're great fans, but you don't need to do all that. Come on now.
with this is we're pinning up two different ages of weird emo fans who
It's
are
true.
annoying for different reasons and also different time periods, none of which exist anymore or take place in the current day. You think
It's true.
MCR, you think the kids in school that were in band and they would like cuddle on the floor in the hall.
Cuddle Puddle, I think is what they used to
Yeah,
call it.
cuddle.
It wasn't cool to be a fan of MCR back in the day.
But at least they had name recognition. Like,
Exactly.
you knew who they were. When Sunny Day Real Estate was big, if you were a fan of theirs, like, you were probably pretty weird. And if you're a fan of Sunny Day Real Estate now, you're probably dating yourself as being kind of like washed up ex-emo dude.
My Chemical Romance.
I'm gonna go with MCR. Mom Jeans versus MGK is funny.
Fair.
Okay, so MGK fan, teenage girl. Mom Jeans fan likes teenage girls. I'm gonna go with Machine Jeans on this one. I feel like we should be having this
Machine Jeans.
conversation in 2018, yet here we are. I'm gonna go with my gut, and I'm gonna
Lil
say
Peep versus
Juice
Juice
WRLD
WRLD.
right off the rip. So
Yeah, Juice
anything
WRLD.
bad you can say about the Lil Peep fan base is 10 times worse for Juice WRLD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Juice WRLD.
Indie sleaze.
First up, Always versus Slow Dive.
When I think Slow Dive, a guy who's like burnt every bridge regarding female friends because he's ended up DMing them at 3 a.m.
As opposed to like Always, this is kind of just your milk toast indie guy.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing too special about him. They have such a wide like indie appeal.
No harm, no foul, you know?
Slow Dive is
Dive.
all harm, all foul.
Yeah. We need to get the ref out here blowing the whistle on Slow Dive fans. And so for that reason, Slow Dive.
I've known some annoying Beach House fans.
Yeah.
Black Country New
I
Road
don't-
Some
I don't
annoying
know these
oranges.
guys.
from what I've
Is Black Country would be
fans
first fan base.
Black Midi, is that
Black
a band
Midi
or are they
versus the
referencing
Garden.
like
We've
people who like
seen Garden fans firsthand.
Black Midi, like the actual? Okay, it is a band. What kind of genre are they? Because like when I think Black Midi, I think of like those overly composed MIDI files. English rock band. Okay, we're genres experimental math rock. Oh, I might like them. Noise rock, that's cool. So like the earlier stuff is noise rock. That's interesting. I guess they've gotten pretty big. I just never heard of them. Been around since 2017. Okay.
Not seeing Black Midi fans firsthand. However,
A Black Midi fan would be more proud of the fact that they're a Black Midi fan than a Garden fan would feel about the Garden.
I agree with that.
And
Yeah.
so for that reason, I'm going to say Black Midi. Not only are these like two different decades we're comparing, but they're on the opposite ends of the
MGMT.
spectrum, even if they were within the same decade.
MGMT is so chaotic good, and Steve
Yeah.
Lacy is like the chaotic evil in this
Yeah, I
situation.
see that.
More annoying fan base. Personally, I think it's clear. We've seen enough that Steve Lacy has totally, and it's really sad for him.
Quiz essential TikTok audience.
Yeah, Steve Lacy, I think you're taking the cake here. Girly boppers.
Lana Del Rey and Soccer Mommy. This one is pretty much a laydown for me. Between these two fan bases, which one
Don't know
has
Soccer
more
Mommy.
antidepressant prescriptions?
It's got to be Lana Del Rey.
The Lana Del Rey fans, they take all their issues and then they wrap it up as part of the aesthetic of being a fan of Lana Del Rey.
Exactly.
Definitely worst music fan base.
Charlie XCX and Claro, quaint girl bedroom pop
Yes.
versus like something you're gonna take poppers to, basically.
Right.
Okay, I think between the two, Charlie has more of a diehard fan base. Even Napster and Ethel Cain. To me, it's obviously Ethel Cain.
No,
to me.
Ethel
Right,
Cain.
right.
We're not just dealing with somebody who has a culture behind them that's like, oh, like she's so mommy, she's like so
Yeah,
queen.
yeah.
That
It's like
mixed with
mental
an intense
health.
online fan base,
Yeah,
I feel like. So
problem.
that alone makes it so much worse than Faye Webster, who just makes this kind of chill.
Not online fan base versus extremely online fan base. Goes without saying. Ethel Cain worst fan base.
Here we go. Biaba Doobie, Taylor Swift.
So I'm going to argue in favor of Taylor Swift because she is the closest thing that any American singer has that's comparable to like a K-pop stan fan base.
100%. Whether
True.
you're like a down bad guy who likes her or you're just like a BPD girl who's a fan of Biaba Doobie, it all pales in comparison. So Taylor Swift, you're the winner.
Whatever happened to yikes? So this is really like a miscellaneous category. We even have some stuff that isn't music related, but they still have very notable fan bases. Burzum versus Blood on the Dance Floor. I don't know anyone that raps Blood on the Dance Floor merch anymore. You know, plenty of people you'll see if you go
I
to
think
like a
something
smaller
bad happened
show.
with Blood
You'll
on the
see
Dance
people that wear
Floor, I'm not
Burzum
sure.
merch, and those people are annoying.
Comparing them to, let's say you're like what? 15, 16-year-old Blood on the Dance
Might be
Floor fan.
confusing then.
You're living vicariously through like old emo like history online on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. You'll be aware of their history and be like, oh, you know what? I really like their music, but I can understand like they're bad people.
With Burzum,
Yeah,
they're like that
yeah.
makes the music more real.
So I think Burzum is a clear winner here.
Attila versus R. Kelly. Okay, say what you want about R. Kelly. Attila
R.
made
Kelly.
these shirts popular. He literally made these shirts. Attila.
Mindless self-indulgence versus D. Antwoord. See, the thing is, I can't really imagine the D. Antwoord fan base. I'm surprised they haven't become TikTokified like Mindless Self-Indulgence has. However, because the MSI fan base probably has a little bit more of that TikTok support, it's probably going to be the
toxic.
Mindless Self-Indulgence. Are state specific. So with okay, now we have r/Goon Cave and Vape Flavors, which are state specific. So with r/Goon Cave, I mean, their community is full of addicts. It's full of people who have completely devoted their free time. This is basically a hobby for them. It's truly an obsession. It's true to the name. They really do create a cave for gooning.
I would imagine that every person
What
that
is it?
goons probably
like
vapes, but not everybody who vapes
drugs?
goons.
You think about who has more potential to be harmful to society.
That's where it gets obvious. Vape flavors. 100 Gex versus Bjork.
It's not like Bjork doesn't have her own dedicated online culture, but compared to that of like 100 Gex, I feel like they're gonna win.
With 100 Gex, you're going to see a lot of people that have like Discord's sense of humor.
The Bjork fan is probably
And
100 Gex
assholes.
wins,
To me, it's
yeah.
Machine Girl. They have more
maybe
Suicide Boys. With Cardi, it's like he's
Suicide
basically
Boys.
because of that.
we're
Gotta win
Cardi?
compared to Suicide
worst
Boys.
fan base. Ignorant rage people. Either you're an ironic fan of Space Ghost Perp or you're an unironic fan of Space Ghost Perp.
Far more.
I agree with this to me. So picture the theater kids on the
Joyce
bus in
Manor.
high school that would sing at the top of their lungs and no one was singing along with them.
It's like you'd still hang out with the
My
annoying
kind.
alt kid because that's pretty much all you had. Because
Yeah.
you know what, you're gonna hang out with the loud, theater kid. That's gonna
Right.
be completely
And
intolerable.
that's also just such a bad look on you. You got to do that for survival purposes as well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say MCR is worse. Korn versus
Really?
Ghost.
What can you expect from a fan base where their favorite artist is a band that makes Scooby-Doo chase music?
I think that Ghost is the Imagine Dragons of metal. Here's what I mean by that.
So
I
true.
want everyone right now to ask yourself, are you an Imagine Dragons fan? The answer is most likely no. Now ask yourself, do you know anyone who's an Imagine Dragons fan? The answer is most likely going to be no. But if you do know any people, out of those people, how many of those people like Imagine Dragons so much that they would pay to go to one of their concerts? Nobody has any clue where Imagine Dragons fans are coming from in order to pay
Yeah.
money to go to their concerts. Yet despite that they're like top charting anytime they release an album. It goes straight to #1. They always get all the radio time. No one knows where that's coming from. And I think that exact same analogy can be applied to Ghost within the metal community. So for
Yeah.
that reason,
Ghost is,
you're moving
like,
on.
Deftones versus
They said it earlier about like somebody else, but like Ghost is very like milk toast kind of band. I feel like I'm sorry if you really like them, you know, I'm offending you right now, but like their music is just very, how do I put it? Cookie cutter. Like I wouldn't even say it's like metal. Like it's just like hard rock, you know. And like that's cool. Hard rock is cool, but Ghost themselves, like it's like kind of mid-oast. I'm gonna
Megadeth.
shut the
Okay,
fuck
when I
up.
close my eyes and I picture what a Deftones fan is like, I am exactly picturing Moist Critical. That's the exact person I'm thinking of in terms of what they look like, their personality, their sense of humor. So really, we're comparing Moist Critical to a 47-year-old man who's been divorced 3 times and still hates his ex-wife. I would give a slight advantage to Moist Critical. So for that reason,
Megadeth.
Megadeth fan, less tolerable, worse fan than a Deftones fan.
We are
Fair.
dealing with 2 insane champions here, 2 legends.
This is one for the ages.
If I'm talking to a Radiohead fan, I know that I will be able to enjoy the conversation with them about their music compared to the kind of conversation I would have with a Weezer fan.
I'd have to agree.
I do not want to sit
'Cause
there
I'm a
and
Radiohead
hear
fan.
about how much they find joy in Weezer's discography past the Blue Album, past Pinkerton, whatever.
So true. Yeah, for everything that's on this bracket right now, though, the closest thing to if Reddit was a band.
Because of that, Weezer.
Weezer has a worse fan base than Radiohead.
Let's
Video
go.
game
I'm not part of the
OSTs
worst
versus
fan
the Smiths.
bases.
Again, we're back to the JROTC.
Video
kid.
game
You know,
OSTs.
we're dealing with the kind of kid who
Video
would
game OSTs.
consistently remind you that he rode his bike to school in the morning.
That was me. I used to ride my bike to school. I didn't want to take the fucking bus. Bro, that shit was like a cesspool of like shit. You'd be on the bus, you know, you're fucking tired. On top of that, they come earlier. At least for me, the bus came like super early. I was like one of the first people they picked up, right? So like my ass, it took shorter for me to get to school by bike. Like it took me like 15 minutes, you know, to get to school by bike. I could leave like, you know, within 20 minutes of school starting. I'd get there on time. Versus the bus, it took like an hour and a half because like it was a huge bus route and I was like the first to get picked up. Fucking hated that shit. So I rode my bike. And you know, I may have been that kid. I was like, hey guys, yeah, I rode my bike to school because you know it was so cool. Or I walked to school because it was still quicker, and I could sleep more. But that fucking beats. Trying to sleep on the bus, you know, your head fucking banging against the window, and you know, kids going, fucking throwing hot Cheetos everywhere, you know, vaping, shitting all over. Vaping wasn't really a big thing when I was actually, you know, in school, I suppose. High school. I mean, not high school, middle school. I'm thinking of when I rode my bike. But, yeah, no, it's just terrible being on the fucking bus, dude. I hated that shit. Ugh. Ugh. Horror. It's like horror stories I have of being on the bus. I actually do have a lot, surprisingly. And, you know, that's why I started riding my bike. So, you know, another benefit, too, is, you know, you get to sleep in a little bit more, at least in my case. And by the time you get to school, you're like, fuck, you know, I guess I'm exercise. I'm awake now. I can pay attention in school. So, you know, my performance in school was improved after that. You know, I was a little more active. So, ride your bike to school if you're a child that goes to school on a bus. Anyways,
Compared to, you know, a kid who at worst would probably like to LARP is someone who was from the UK at that time saying things like bloody. I just don't want to get anywhere within 10 feet of video game OSTs and military marches, kid.
When you think of the type of
Yeah.
cringe that the ROTC video game OST military marches, kid,
I'm not sure why they're ROTC. Like, the people I've always known that liked video game OSTs, okay, I'm not saying, like, it's toxic. Like, I don't think it's a toxic. I think they're just going off of, like, oh, it's cringy. You know, like, the people I've always known were actually pretty cool. I will say, though, like, you know, online, oh my god, some of these people are insufferable, dude. Like, yeah, go to Kirby Music Soundtrack. You know, you get fucking racist people. You'll get like what do you call it? Anti-Semitic people. Like, it's huge for some fucking reason. So maybe there's some intersection with the military. I just have never known. That was a big thing. Like ROTC military kind of kids like video game OSTs. You know, I will say there was a few video game OSTs that I really like. There are some really fucking good video game OSTs out there, but it's like, you know, I'd listen to it, you know, in context of playing the game. Maybe there's a few where I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll listen to it. You know, I hear one all the time. It's like Risk of Rain 2. Like, that's a video game. Yeah. I hear that song and it's fucking good. I could see why people would like that. So, like, yeah, but it's definitely, I feel like, a more toxic fan base than the Smiths. I don't go to like a Smiths, you know, lyric video and see people saying, fuck, slur, slur, slur. You know, like, it's not something you see. I feel like, but you will see that in video game OSTs. That's my take
There's
on
an
that.
air of innocence to him. He lives inside of this bubble that has not been pierced yet by the cruelty of this world. The Smiths kid is the perpetrator of that very same cruelty.
But he's probably just as hurt. He obviously has that like poetic softness in his heart.
The
And
softness was crushed by a girl when he was 15 and tearing the legs off of grasshoppers and burying their heads into ant
we're
pits.
dealing with Brian Griffin versus Peter Griffin here. Okay, after much heated debate, we've decided to go with the Smiths. Simply
What?
Because they're British. Lana Del Rey versus
What the
Charlie
fuck,
XCX.
dude?
The kind of substance.
What is wrong with these guys and hating on the Smiths? Okay, I get it. Yeah, they're British. Haha, they speak funny. They're faking that accent. Well, British. But still, video game OSTs? More toxic community. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about British people or the community? Because it's worst music fan base. You know what? Fuck you. Dislike. I'm just joking. Interesting video. I disagree with you, though.
That I think the Charlie
Fine.
XCX fan would probably abuse would be like Ket, poppers, MDMA,
Party stuff,
party stuff, as opposed to Lana Del Rey abusing more weed, stuff that would try to calm you down from like an emotional mania. I'd say the Lana Del Rey fan would be more of a drag to be around and is like more annoying for that reason.
I'm more annoyed by the upper people than by the downer people. The Lana fan is going to be more draining to an extrovert, which is closer to what a normie is. Therefore, they're going to be more abrasive to wider society as a whole. Therefore, Lana's fan base wins for worse. Ethel Cain versus Taylor Swift.
I don't think anybody's going to beat Swifties. I mean, Swifties are just so, compared to an Ethel Cain fan, I don't care how online you are as an Ethel Cain fan. If you're a Swiftie,
The Ethel Cain fan is going to do that whole, like, detached, ironic, oh, I don't care about anything, like, you know, online personality trait thing. But the Swiftie, on the other hand, this is the
We're
kind of person
outgoing
who carries around, like, one of those 1-gallon water bottles, and it's labeled, like, 1/8. You're almost there. The kind of person that needs encouragement to drink water.
Taylor Swift, your fan base is more
Fair.
annoying than Ethel Cain's.
Burza
No,
versus Attila,
no.
we're dealing with two
Taylor
different
Swift people,
references.
they're cool. You know, they just like a little bit of Taylor Swift. You know, I enjoy some Taylor Swift. You know, I think Ethel Cain is an interesting artist in their own right. Taylor Swift, not as toxic as Ethel Cain's community.
To pagan war villains. I was at a show one time and I started talking to a girl there and she was a big Attila fan and she was talking about how she saw him one time and when she was there she ended up meeting him. She stayed after and she got him
Attila.
to sign her ass with a Sharpie.
Ugh.
Not only is that like gross, but she was explaining it to me as if she was bragging, like it was something to brag about, and it was like
funny.
really cool. That's really what I pictured.
But you can't judge a community based off one person. But I guess you can if you chose to. Shouldn't though. I feel like it's not very fair.
when I think of an Attila fan. Yes, so Attila has a worse fan base than Burzum.
Mindless
I don't know
self-indulgence
any of
versus
them, so I
vape
can't even
flavors.
say.
I'd still rather hang out with the worst mindless self-indulgence fan versus the worst vapor.
That there's no mindless self-indulgence equivalent to a guy who spends $300 on a box mod. It was doomed from the start. All right, we've made it to the sweet 16.
I feel like the vape
Who has the
mods are
worst
just
fan
gonna win the
base?
entire
100
thing.
Dex or Machine Girl.
People that are like so closely knit together. Like it's
Yeah.
really not that
100
far away
Gex.
from the 100 Gex
This
fan
one's
to the
easy.
Machine Grill fan, so this is pretty different.
So this they're
Taking all invaders
Yeah.
is going to have the worst fan base compared to
or
Yep,
Yeats.
called it.
Think about how much he embraces
Yeet.
his goofiness and his silliness.
Mhm.
Whether it's his ad libs, whether it's his
No, Cardi.
aesthetics.
The fact that Cardi's serious is going
Yeah.
to make his fan base look even worse when they act goofy and cringe.
100%. Exactly.
Okay.
Cardi, your fan base is worse. All right. My Chemical Romance versus
Juice WRLD.
Juice WRLD 2 emo
Juice
legends.
One artist is more derivative of the other, which in turn is going to reflect on their fan base as being less original. So I'm already favoring Juice WRLD a bit here.
The sad themes that you have in My Chemical Romance's music,
They're more nuanced. The type of writing that's
Yeah.
in emo rap does not hold a candle to the type of writing in older emo
Yep.
music. I think that I
Agreed.
would rather be friends with an MCR fan in 2007
Juice
than a
WRLD
Juice
people?
WRLD fan.
You guys are posers. Poser emos. Wah. Rap. That's what I hear. That's what I hear from Juice WRLD, okay? No disrespect, I'm sorry. You know. Rest in peace.
fan in 2018.
oh, 100%. Juice WRLD takes the cake.
Yes. Slow Dive versus Steve Lacy. I think that at this point, Steve Lacy, anything we can say about his fan base, it's really a one-trick pony. The only
I was just
reason he's
joking,
gotten
by
as
the
far
way.
as, oh, TikTok fan base, they don't know his actual music. They don't have any other defining characteristics besides that. Slow Dive, on the other hand, you could write an essay on like all the problems that those people have. And you also have the added bonus of them also
Oh my
having
gosh.
now heavy on TikTok audience as well.
Yeah.
So they have everything that
True.
Steve Lacy has against him, plus
But
extras.
worse.
Slow Dive, worse fan base than Steve Lacy.
Comparing Ghost to Megadeth.
If you're a guy who's like really into
Ghost.
doom metal, you could argue that they're actively harming the genre. Versus Megadeth fans,
Their legacy. Their legacy.
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point.
they can't really actively harm anything because they're about to die of old age. They're gonna experience
Oh my
their own Megadeth themselves very soon.
Ghost.
Yeah, Ghost is just
way
milk
worse
bread,
than
bro.
Megadeth fans.
It's like
Weezer versus the Smiths.
like drinking
Once
stale
again,
water.
We have something that's going to be a very hotly debated.
Sorry,
It has been
guys.
hotly debated for a long time
Weezer.
now, and I have a feeling
Easy.
this isn't even going to settle that either.
Think about the reaction that Weezer fans had when they released a cover of Toto's Africa.
Oh
Like, I
my
think that
God.
tells you everything, bro. Like, I mean, we got to give it to Weezer here.
Yeah, Weezer has the worst fan base.
Thank you
than
guys
Smiths.
for
Lana Del
agreeing
Rey
with my
versus
opinion.
Taylor Swift.
Neopunk
Man,
FM.
Just think about the kind of art they're appreciating, that each of these fan bases are appreciating.
You know what? If you look at Taylor's career and you look at the kind of music she's making,
Lana Del
what
Rey.
she's making 10 years ago and what she's making now, she's just trying to be Lana now.
You guys are worse than Lana Del Rey fans. What do you want me to say?
Really?
Attila versus vape flavors.
Taylor
So
Swift
every
won
Attila
the
fan
toxicity.
vapes, not every vapor.
You know what? I didn't even consider this. I completely forgot about like all that shit with the, you know, going to the Taylor Swift concerts and like people were like jacking up the prices, and these fucking people have so much money they'd blow through tens of thousands of dollars. You know, break fucking website because of like how obsessed they are over Taylor Swift. So don't ever think I've heard about that with Lana Del Rey. So that's fair. I agree.
Because Attila shares so many characteristics with the average vape enjoyer, but they're a smaller fandom. That means they're much more concentrated. So you have a more concentrated level of
Vape flavors
insufferability and cringe.
win.
You're not going to find an Attila fan that's like chill.
You'll find people who vape who are chill, at least, at the
Yeah.
very least.
Yeah,
So that,
that's-
you know, Attila has the worst
that's
fan
true.
base.
The quarterfinals.
I
of
thought
the
they were
gun.
gonna win.
100
Uh,
Gex versus Cardi.
At
Or
the
the
point in
vape
the bracket that
flavors.
we're getting to,
100
if you were to
Gex.
be locked in
No,
a room
Cardi.
with one of these
Cardi.
fans, you could turn it into a Mr. Beast challenge video. The extremes for both Cardi and Gex are going to be off the charts insane. So I think the only way we'll be able to get through this comparison is by looking at pure averages and no longer focusing on like what the extremes of either fan base is going to look like.
The 100 Gex fan is probably so socially stunted, and albeit society's very crazy,
Fair.
but I think that the 100 Gex fan, regardless of how crazy society
Less
is,
normie
still
than Cardi,
has a harder
so
time
I see what they're
integrating
saying.
in versus the Cardi fan. Whether it's because of this image they have of themselves in their head or their own personal life experiences or whatever. So because of that, 100 Gex, you
Have
beat
a
out
worse fan base than Cardi.
Juice WRLD versus Slow Dive.
You know what?
Juice
I will
WRLD.
say this: the Juice WRLD fan, they're gonna grow out of it. Slow Dive, those
Fair.
guys are always gonna be 22. The Juice
I
WRLD fan
understand.
can only do drugs for so long. The Slow Dive fan can manipulate women for an eternity.
Slow Dive, you beat out Juice WRLD. Ghost versus Weezer.
You're gonna have cringe older Ghost fans The really young Ghost fans, they might not be as
Weezer, I
cringe
feel like-
because they haven't been corrupted by all the weirdo doom metal stuff yet. Every
I
single
like
age
Weezer
bracket, every
actually,
single
but
age
I feel like
demographic, they're going to be
he's
pretty
probably
much
more
the same
toxic
level of
than
cringe.
I
Ghost
think
community.
Weezer still beats them.
Yeah.
I think Weezer still comes
Yeah.
out on top. Taylor Swift versus
hate
Attila.
Ghost.
How many
Yeah.
Taylor Swift fans have you met in real life that are really
I
bad
don't hate
and aren't
them.
just
I
stuff
think-
you've seen on the
I
internet?
just think they're
Average Taylor Swift fan
bland.
versus average Attila fan. I think the average Attila fan.
Is
I
gonna-
think you're right. It probably still beats
They're
out
gonna
the
be
average
worse.
Taylor Swift fan. Yeah.
The final four, the semifinals, 100 Gex takes Slow Dive. Weezer takes Attila. We have whittled it down from 64 artists down to just 2, and we're about to say the
Really?
final one.
These are
no
the
one
two
is
most
ever going
toxic.
to look back on a Weezer and think, yeah, those guys were cool, and I was cool for being a part of that.
When society is in ruins, when empires have fallen, Weezer will still be cringe. 100 Gex, whether they're remembered as fondly, probably will still live on in the hearts of those people.
Weezer has the worst fan base.
What does that mean? Because Weezer fans are pretty fucking adamant. If they're like, oh yeah, they'll grow up and think it's cringe. Like I know old Weezer fans. You don't really know old 100 Gex fans. I feel like that's more of something you grow out of. I mean, yeah, there's a diehard community for like the pop, hyper pop. Maybe I understand because you know Weezer does have pretty toxic community from experiences I've had. So,
Of all time.
sure.
Of all the saddest things of Word and Pin were these. Neopunk FM was right again.
Pretty good. Nice video. And yeah, I agree with Rory Beavis here. This video taught me that inevitably we're all cringe. I am super cringe. You know the music I listen to? Cringe. That's okay, because I fucking love it. You know, if you like any of these bands, you know, that were on any of these projects, any of these homies here, where's the fucking list? Yeah, we're talking a lot of trash, but I respect all of
Music
you.
fan.
You know, it's cool that you have your own individual taste in music, and I appreciate that. And I don't think inherently because, you know, the larger community is toxic that, you know, that any given individual in that community is toxic. The loudest people are usually the what do you call it? The loudest people are usually those extreme people. You know, those overly obsessed kind of people who, you know, will write slurs on somebody's page that disagrees with them or somebody's comment or something. You know, those are the loudest people because, you know, they're so passionate about it. You know, it's okay to be passionate about something, but like you don't gotta be toxic about it, you know? You know, so I appreciate all of you who like these music, you know, just because it's what you like. I don't appreciate, you know, the toxicity, you know, behind it. Behind some of it. Again, like I said, it's the minority that are like that. But they're just the loudest, you know? I know they were saying earlier, like, how Taylor Swift's fans is really toxic. And I was, like, kind of, you know, joking around, like, yeah, it's kind of true. You know, because the whole concert thing. But there's so many Taylor Swift fans that, like, they're just talking about, like, that minority subset of people that are, like, you know, willing to kill somebody just to see the concert. And, yeah, that's just kind of how it is with this. That's my take. It wasn't very coherent because I'm bad at making argumentative speech. I'm not a public speaker, nor am I good at writing argumentative essays in the first place. So why would I be good at coming up with them on the spot? I'm not. So, yeah. I tried putting some words to my thoughts there and speaking them. If you disagree with, what I said or any of that stuff, that's cool. We're all individuals. I respect your opinion. Um, that's about it for me for now. I think I might put a pause on the stream. Go get a drink. Use the bathroom. So you know what that means. It's time for some MS Paint. And I need to make a be right back screen. So let's make it black with red scary text. Oh, we gotta make this bigger. Gotta fit the screen. Oh, what if I hold on? Damn, that's so cool. That's so cool, bro. Oh my god. Actually, no, not really. Let's just do black because I like black, and then let's do bright red. That looks that looks badass. That's sick. That is cool as fuck. Damn. That is awesome. Can we go bigger? Can we go 72? We see 70. Ooh, look at that shit. Look at that shit. Can I make right even bigger? Let's go 144. 144. Yeah, we can. That is sick. That is sick as fuck, dude. That is so fucking cool. Be right back. Right back. And then let's use some white text, to add some contrast. Let's make this 8 pixels wide. Let's like do a oh yeah. Some scratchy text. You're like wondering, why am I spending so much time on this stuff? I'm gonna be right back. I could have just like been back by now. That's a question I'm not gonna answer. Fuck you. Just kidding. Love you. Love you, 0 viewers. Fucking love you. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Hello. I'm back. And I found a video to watch. Again, another music related. But I find it. God damn. Where is the. Found it interesting. It's about a topic that I like. Don't worry about the search history. Fuck. All my homies hate Skrillex. Caught my attention because I'm not the only one to react to this. Yeah, the internet. No ideas original. All my homies hate Skrillex. What happened with dubstep? This has a special place in my heart because back in like 2010s, I dabbled in some dubstep. For a little, it was unironic actually. That's my cringy story, but then I liked it for its ironic purposes. Suntory. Visit. Water. Fuck, I got some on my headset. I'm very terrible at drinking. But yeah, no, this is an interesting topic, and again, it's music related, so I should probably change the title of this stream. Hating on music. So I'm hating on music right now. Fuck Skrillex. Just kidding. They hold a special place in my heart because, I was chronically online kid, so I knew a lot of Skrillex.
Of all the electronic music genres which exist in our modern landscape, there are few that manage to evoke such an immediate visceral reaction from people as dubstep. Somewhere in the last 10 years, dubstep has
It's fucking funny, like, what dubstep became. It's like this MLG thing. Like, you'd see all these stupid MLG edits, and, I thought it was so funny as a kid. You'd have some Skrillex playing, Snoop Dogg in the corner going. Yeah. If you know, you know.
acquired the meaning of being something other than a genre. It's more like a ubiquitous oral shorthand for absurdity that everyone immediately recognizes. A shrieking,
True.
piercing, overcompressed noise that's played for about 2 to 3 seconds in adverts or YouTube videos, enough time for a joke to land or for the YouTuber to pull a silly face or for someone to celebrate a no-scope headshot.
Yeah, exactly. The MLG thing. But, like, I remember, like, a while there, in, like, the 2010s-ish, maybe mid to late 2010s, like, commercials and stuff started using it. And it's, like, they were taking themselves so seriously. And, like, the thing is, like, the people that were using dubstep in, like, videos and stuff, they're, of course, being ironic. But these brands, these companies were like, yeah, this is what the kids like. They like their dubstep. So they're like, yeah, epic dubstep music. I don't know. It's funny. It was a weird time
Before
to
the
be
video
alive.
cuts to something else, dubstep is not just the butt of a lot of jokes. Dubstep literally is a
Elders
joke,
react.
being played only so that people will laugh. As it exists in 2021, it's probably one of the most obnoxious, tackiest, and stupid genres of music I've ever heard. And yet, it shares a name with another genre that I happen to consider to be one of the most expressive and eclectic sounds I've ever had the pleasure of listening to.
Talking about
A
like
genre which,
EDM
when I was
or-
15 years old, opened my mind to the possibilities of what electronic music could be and laid the foundations for everything I've listened to since. A genre which, no matter how hard I try, continues to occupy the most important place in my memories. How did it happen that the thing I used to love
I'm
so
guessing he's
much
talking
became
about
the
EDM.
thing I now most passionately hate? Well, that is what this video is an attempt at sorting
Said
out.
it shares a
Get ready
name.
to be haunted by the story of how changes in the system led to me being musically homeless. This is why all my homies hate Skrillex. When I was younger, I was into b-boying, and I'd sometimes get a lift to breaking sessions with another guy from the same dance group who was 18 and had his own car. That was insanely cool to me as a 15-year-old. We'd usually listen to music that you could break to. Eric B. and Rakim, Freestyle Fellowship, Wu-Tang Clan,
Breakdancing.
a load of old boom-bap style hip-hop from the US. But on this one fateful day, my mate brought this mix CD of a load of rave tunes. It was mainly jungle, stuff like Dillinger, frenetic jump up beats that kind of pummel you with all types of percussion. But there was one piece of music on that mix CD which honestly had no earthly business being there. And this piece of music, unbeknownst to me at the time, would go on to change the course of my adolescent years. It started with a whimpering echo
know this.
and cavernous
Starts
rolling
now.
drums with all the high end chopped off, leaving a chasm of space in the mix before suddenly hitting me with this. There was instantly something about this track that
Very
felt
dope.
completely alien to me. I'd heard wobbling distorted leads on drum and bass before, but I'd never heard them like this. It was an ambling, heavy-footed elephant of a beat whose drums pounded behind the bass in such a transfixing way that the whole thing became hypnotic. Each time the hook came back round, it was more transfixing, and I felt like I was sinking deeper and deeper into it. I had goosebumps up and down my spine, and I got that feeling that I now look back on as being particularly emblematic of being a teenager stumbling upon their passion project. It's hard to explain exactly the emotions I
I know
had,
what he's
but
talking about.
basically in that moment I was 100% certain that I would henceforth never listen to any other genre of music ever again.
I had
For the
that
next
moment
3 years,
too.
that was actually pretty accurate. There's a lot of lionizing narratives around the importance of experiencing dubstep as God intended it to be heard, deep in the rave on a massive sound system. But reality check, I was a 15-year-old living in the suburbs of Nottingham. My experience of dubstep
No
did not
idea.
come from going to raves. The few
You
that I
kidding
tried
me?
to go to, I wasn't allowed in because I didn't have ID. However, I think there's something to be said for the way that I ended up becoming completely enmeshed in the dubstep scene anyway, in spite of not being able to go to any of the raves. My starting point was a dubstep mix CD called Dubstep All Stars 5. I went through the track list putting the names of every artist featured on this CD into LimeWire, which was like a file sharing thing back in the day. And LimeWire was so random. The results came directly from other people's computers, so you often got tunes with the wrong file names, tunes that had been ripped from vinyl and sounded like shit, often tunes which had the wrong artist names on them, because people had just cut them out of mixes and straight up guessed what they thought the artist's
That's
name
so
was.
funny.
One of the surprising advantages of getting into dubstep a bit later on in the scene's development like I did, was that by the time I went digging, there was already a massive wealth of material to explore. The stuff that immediately appealed to me was anything by Koki. His tunes sounded so evil, like really horrible and predatory. His bass line sounded like they'd been squeezed out of a leaky pipe, and he had all these glitched out effects he used to throw you off the beat in the background. Next came Scream. Scream at his best made tunes which I would describe as psychedelic. The leads were colourful as hell, and you'd hear these dazzling melodies being shot out of a cannon at you that would then be flipped and reinterpreted as the track went on. I also soon developed a taste for Mahler's deep orchestral echo chambers. And basically, if you're a dubstep head, you know that Mahler's music is basically the olives of the dubstep scene. If anyone says they don't like it, it's just because their taste buds haven't quite matured enough yet. When they're a bit older, they'll be ready to appreciate Burrito Boy. It's really hard to put into words just how much of a revelation all this was to me as a 15-year-old. Something that happens as you get older as a music fan is that you start being able to compartmentalize everything you hear because it reminds you of the stuff you've listened to before. If someone plays you a footwork
Yeah.
track, you'll immediately start comparing it to stuff by DJ Rashad. Whenever you hear a mixtape from a new rapper, you'll straight away start thinking, his flow sounds like Earl's, or his beats sound like Playboy Carti's. And as useful as this can be to contextualize things you're hearing, once your mind is wired like that, you lose the sense of wonderment that can only come from having no idea how a piece of music was made. From hearing something so alien that
Makes
you
a
have
lot
no
of sense.
way of situating it in your mind other than just knowing that you love it. I remember in particular,
That was-
Loafer's
That was pretty much me. Like the first time I heard dubstep, like I felt the same. I was like, "Damn, I've never heard anything like this before. This is way different than the stuff that I hear all the time on the radio." You know.
remix of The Bug. It starts with this echoey pluck and then hits you with this. I had never heard anyone spit lyrics with a Jamaican patois flow before. I had never heard a bass like
That's
that
pretty
either,
sick.
that hit like a quasi 808. This wasn't just a case of me hearing something new. It felt to me that this was a track which had been sent from outer space because I literally couldn't place any of the elements of the tune in my mind with anything I'd ever heard before. And yet I loved every bit of it so intensely. I eventually stumbled upon the Rinse Mix CD series, and by extension Rinse FM, a pirate radio station where I could hear dubstep DJs playing all their new shit every week. And I think it was when I started listening to Scream's show on Rinse, Stellar Sessions, that dubstep stopped feeling like a hobby and became something more like a way of life for me. Scream was a great producer, but he had something else that came from a different place than pure production skill and made him a true star. And that was the fact that he was fucking hilarious.
Hold up, you ready? We're cracking them. Crack 'em!
How can I even describe Stellar Sessions? It was like going to your mate's house,
Like
you're
this
gassed to
personality.
see on a personal level, and your mate is whipping out the firest dubs you've ever heard, and he's as excited to play them to you as you are to hear them.
Just once. I gotta feel the impact of that drop one more time.
I definitely had a bit of a parasocial friendship thing going on with Scream when I was a teenager. I didn't know him personally. I understood that he was just a DJ who played music I liked. And yet at the same time, he felt like an older brother to me. Upon reflection, I can see that a lot of behaviors which are hard baked into my personality now as an adult, from the slang I use to the sense of humor I have, were probably directly influenced by Scream.
Interesting. I was never like huge into the dubstep kind of thing. Like, never really was my cup of tea. But like when I first heard it, and like heard some of these tracks, I was like, damn, that's pretty interesting. That's unique. I like that. Interesting, you know. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But you know, I grew out of it really fast. Like, it was something I don't know, I didn't really mess with too much. I felt like the hardcore, more emo kind of music, you know, slapped a little harder to me. And like that's kind of the community I really got into. So
In the way he used
Yeah.
to talk about stuff and finding the exact same things funny.
I hate Gabba. I hate it. Like, it could be forgotten about. I don't think anyone would really care. Like, there are a few people know it in Holland. And that, do you know what I mean? But
Can we have a round of applause for Scream?
Also, Banger and Scream's friendship. What the fuck? That was the most heartwarming thing I'd ever witnessed as a young dude whose only interest was really bass music. In interviews and on radio shows, you could feel this really sincere love that these two guys had for each other's music
that's cool.
and each other. Meanwhile, I was stacking shelves at
Appreciate
Iceland every
that.
weekend and spending every single pound I earned on dubstep vinyl. I also got a cracked copy of Reason from my older sister's boyfriend specifically so I could start making dubstep music. And thus I began what would become a lifelong hobby of making beats. So although I was not in the clubs in the
That's cool.
heyday of dubstep, I
Yeah,
still
get
very much
inspired
felt
by
like I was part of the dubstep movement, and that the dubstep movement was a big part of me. It was something bigger than a hobby. It was the
Actually,
entire
like
foundation-
embarrassing secret. You know, I've always wanted to make music, but I found like, you know, I suck at making music, I guess. But what I found, so there's a lot of tutorials on how to like make EDM dubstep style of music. So like, I did some of that. It was shit. It was so bad. You know, I tried making like lo-fi kind of stuff. It was ass. It was so ass. Like, no one in their fucking right mind would listen to that shit. Because I was just so bad. But yeah, it exists. It's out there. Maybe one day I'll expose myself. That sounds fucking wrong. I mean, like, expose my past. You know, of this shitty music creation was really bad.
foundation of my identity. Some teenagers get into sports, others play video games. My thing was being clinically obsessed with dubstep.
Sounds of the youngster.
There.
In order to understand how things started going west in the dubstep scene, you first have to understand what
Skrillex.
dubstep actually was. And I'm not talking about the Wikipedia definition. Yeah, it was a half-step club genre with big bass played around 140 beats per minute. No, you have to understand what dubstep really was. In the same way that romantic orchestral music emerged as an
Like, I don't
emotional
really know
response to
much about the
restrained
dubstep
classicism
scene,
and rock
to be
and roll
honest. So this is
emerged as a
interesting.
reaction to the anodyne, family-friendly pop music of the post-war period, dubstep emerged as a reaction to UK garage. In many ways, UK garage was the quintessential late 90s genre. The spirit of the music reflected the unbridled time of optimism that was coursing through the veins of the UK. 80s austerity was over, young people had more disposable income than they could ever remember having, and everything was just so colourful. The culture of UK garage
That's
music,
so.
like everything else in the late 90s, was extravagant as fuck. Now, don't get me wrong, the people going to garage raves were the same as any other young people. They probably had no money and spent everything they owned whiling out at the weekend. But there was something about garage music culture that led to people behaving super extra. Like, people would go to the rave in a power suit and bust champagne in the middle of the dance floor. It was glorious musical escapism, a sort of public spectacle that everyone in the garage scene collaboratively participated in. The garage movement brought people from Great Britain into a more colourful and aspirational world. And you can see this reflected in the promo shots that artists rolled out at the time. They reflect this off-the-wall, vibrant lifestyle that the garage movement projected. Even in the promo shots of So Solid crew, the baddest garage MCs who were themselves a repudiation of certain trends in the wider movement, there are these residual symbols of extravagant fashion and ostentatious wealth. They were members of the garage underground, but they were also royalty. By contrast, look at the promo shots of dubstep artists which started emerging in the 2000s. And straight away, there's a lot of different visual information here. First, look at the people. From the way they dress, to the way they hold themselves, to the way they're framed in the shot. What's striking is that they are remarkable only in their unremarkableness. They're people who you'd pass on the street and not give a moment's notice to. People who are no different in status or substance to you or me. And of course, dubstep producers make a conscious choice to frame their press shots in this way. Scream's first LP cover in particular has always struck me as the kind of photo that your mate might snap of you as a joke when you're pretty fucking spangled. But there's obviously something in this image of Scream being at odds with a crowded room that communicates a message about his music.
It's like everybody's alive and like lively and cool around him, and he's just kind of there. You know, he's like a floater, like a ghost, just. You know, that's cool. I like
that he wants to put out there. Additionally, look how much setting we're seeing in these photos. The surrounding environments of dilapidated streets, desolate buildings, and battered walls. The framing of the shots means that people are often dwarfed by their own surroundings. And again, this is a conscious decision. The artists are not just showing us who they are, they're to a much larger extent showing us the places they live in. And this is a great jumping off point to start talking about what dubstep was. The early pioneers of dubstep splintered away from garage because they were drawn to deeper, darker sounds. The movement that eventually formed would replace the kaleidoscopic escapism of the previous era with a clear, transparent magnifying glass through which the greyness, the moodiness, and the alienation of modern Britain were no longer ignored, but reveled in.
Interesting. I see where he's coming to that conclusion. I mean, that's just from like the images.
Dubstep sounded grey. It sounded cold and isolating. It was an unapologetically intense and brooding genre, more prone to make you knock your head back and grimace than vibe like you would in a party atmosphere. In 2004, music journalist Martin Clark, aka Blackdown, wrote, "If grime is the voice of angry urban London, dubstep is its primary echo, the sound of dread bass reflecting off decaying walls. Tune your ear right and you'll detect the secondary echoes of King Tubby's dub excursions, Wiley and Jamo's Sino-grime experiments, strange B-movies, Metalheads at its peak, Zed Bias and LP's Dark Swing, Basic Channel's Decay, and Detroit's mournful machine funk. But most of all, you'll hear the echoes of modern multicultural London, of Jamaican, African, Chinese, Indian, American, Cockney, and even Scottish accents. Reflections come off crumbling warehouses, dirty tower blocks, endless road terraces, unhinged night bus rides, skunked out cars, and clattering overland trains. London. This is the defining influence on dubstep, that which gives it its tempered, edgy, compressed character. These are the echoes of a tense, intense city. This is mystical margin music. This is London, 2004. Dubstep was very much a product of its time and place. Following the Twin Towers, the London terror attacks, and the subsequent retaliatory war in Iraq, the atmosphere in Britain was far more grim, and our cultural output reflected the change. We saw an influx of gritty films and TV shows which looked at the character of Britain through a more critical lens, exploring the emptiness of what it ultimately meant to lead a British working life, challenging grand narratives about British society and our institutions, and prompting some serious reflection on the underlying soul of the nation. Dubstep captured this shift towards gritty realism in music form. But what was so deeply resonant about the
Full
genre was
retrospect,
its
I love
underlying
that.
ability to capture beauty in the darkness. The sound palette of dubstep was moody, and yet the tunes that came out of it often produced these uplifting, transcendental moments that sounded all the more satisfying because they came from a dark and brooding place. And if we're gonna talk about the capacity of dubstep to find beauty in the gloom, we're gonna have to acknowledge the artist who did that the best. As soon as Burial emerged, it was clear that dubstep had found its virtuoso talent, its Shakespeare, its Banksy, the artist that took the conventions of the medium and did something so special with them that they utterly transcended the genre. Burial's music fundamentally changed the way people thought about dubstep, revealing that the mournful, echoey aesthetic of the sound could be channeled into remarkably human songwriting. But really, more crucially, Burial's music challenged people's perceptions of what electronic music could be, full stop. His early albums have not aged a day since they were released over 10 years ago, and still sound like some version of electronic music which has been intercepted by creatures from another world who've tried to replicate dubstep and garage, only to come out with a product which is way too ethereal and otherworldly to fit in with what we have here down on Earth. Every time I mention Burial to someone who knows about his music, I'll see this look pass over their face, and I just know that they've got bare memories attached to his stuff. My best friend told me that as a teenager he laid down on the floor and cried his eyes out once to the heart-wrenching vocal that comes in the last 30 seconds of Shell of Light. My girlfriend once remarked to me that she'd had a midnight walk listening to Foster Care, and it suddenly dawned on her that the fading, high-pitched noises embedded in the mix were exactly like the fading lamplights she was walking past on the street. And in my early 20s, I remember a particular New Year's Eve where we all danced to Homeless on the edge of a hill overlooking Sheffield. Burial's tunes are just so expressive and poignant in so many different ways that they sound like straight up emotions just being beamed out of your own heart. There's an ongoing discussion about
I have to do something real quick. All right.
whether Burial's music can, in fact, be considered dubstep at all, as it so willfully bends tropes of the genre. But I've always found that although Burial's affiliation to the dubstep scene might be whispered in the genre conventions of his music, it's very clearly articulated in his ethos as an artist. Here's what he said in an interview with Mark Fisher in 2007. "I spend a lot of time wandering around London. I always have. Sometimes it's because I've got somewhere to go. Sometimes it's because I haven't got anywhere to go. So I'd be wandering endlessly, getting in places. Being on your own, listening to headphones, is not a million miles away from being in a club surrounded by people. You let it in, you're more open to it. Sometimes you get that feeling like a ghost touched your heart, like someone walks with you. In London, there's a kind of atmosphere that everyone knows about, but if you talk about it, it just sort of disappears. It's about being on a night bus or with your mates, walking home across your city on your own late at night, or being in a situation with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or coming back from a club or putting tunes on and falling asleep. If you're well into tunes, your life starts to weave around them. I'd rather hear a tune about real life, about the UK, than some US hip-hop. I love R&B tunes and vocals, but I like hearing things that are true to the UK, like drum and bass and dubstep. Once you've heard that,
I didn't know about this really hardcore link between dubstep and the UK. I didn't know about that, so that's actually really cool to learn.
Underground music in your life, other stuff just sounds like a fucking advert. Imported. Dubstep was a sick fucking bassy club genre, but it also had something else baked into it. There was a feeling surrounding dubstep, difficult to put your finger on, but nonetheless always present. It felt like the genre had something to say about Britain, about life here, and the way we carve out small moments of peace in largely oppressive, monotonous surroundings. And although not every person who listened to dubstep back then would articulate this in quite the same way I am doing now, I can tell you that this feeling of dubstep standing for something bigger was something we all felt. I hope this gives you some idea of the fact that although dubstep was just club music, reducing it down to its genre tropes doesn't do justice to what it actually represented in mid-2000s Britain. It carried a specific contextual meaning that was hard-baked into its style and form. To hardcore dubstep fans, this meaning was an important part of dubstep's legacy, something that dubstep needed to honor. And this makes what happened next all the more painful. Brostep is a term which has been coined to describe a particular derivative of dubstep which emerged in the early 2010s. This style of dubstep leans towards the use of melodic Ibiza-sounding intros, big, crisp, heavy metal drums, and waves upon waves of distorted, modulated bass lines which frantically smash their way into tracks, leading to a listening experience of absolute chaos. The word brostep was originally coined by DJ Cozzy around 2010, and was subsequently popularized by a spin profile of the movement in 2011. It's an inherently pejorative term, designed to disparage the people who listen to this type of dubstep as bros, cultureless frat boys who've never put in the work that the rest of us did, crying to the last 30 seconds of Shell of Light by Burial. The most popular artist of this subgenre, and undoubtedly the one who played the biggest role in bringing it to worldwide acclaim, is a producer from Los Angeles, America, called Sonny John Moore, aka Skrillex. To say that Skrillex's music was not well received by the UK dubstep scene is quite the understatement. The UK scene hated Skrillex on a deep, emotional level. We hated his screechy music, we hated his fans, we hated the essence of who he was and what he stood for so much. Fate could not have conspired to thrust a more infuriating person into the role of dubstep's ambassador to the world than former first to last lead singer Sonny Moore. And he was popular, so popular that henceforth, whenever dubstep was mentioned in a conversation, Skrillex's music was the default setting of what people thought you meant. And that remains true to this day. Whatever dubstep was before 2010, the way in which the majority of the world identify the music, if they've heard of it at all, is via the particular brand of dubstep that Skrillex makes. When dubstep heads try to explain how Skrillex was able to become the biggest star of a scene where all the original fans ostensibly hated him, they have a tendency of spinning certain narratives about evil corporate America emerging from nowhere and somehow managing to corrupt the pure and beautiful spirit of the UK dubstep sound. There's a reason why this narrative is compelling. It fits with a preconception that we already have here in the UK about what happens to art and culture when it passes through the machine of American commercialism. Like what happened with films from world cinema, and what happened with politics, and what famously happened with The Office, our British comedy which unflinchingly showed the mediocrity and unfulfillment of working life, which was slowly transformed into a show of wacky American hijinks where all the characters...
That's interesting because, like, from what I know as an American, everyone that's talked about The Office to me always says that the UK, like the original, like first season, sucked really bad. Like, oh, it wasn't good at all, wasn't interesting. So hearing him being like, oh yeah, it's ruined now that it was in America's hands, you know, I could understand why, you know, they would think that, because, you know, it's like, oh, they took our thing.
Seem to be inexplicably living their best lives through working at a mid-tier American paper company. Why the fuck are they all
That's
singing
fair.
Michael an emotional farewell song? He's the most annoying person in the world. That's the whole premise of the fucking show. However, the truth is
more
far
like a
more
comedy
complex
thing.
than commercial America
Oh.
having its wicked way with our music
Not like a
scene.
nitty,
And as will
like, real
become clear,
gritty, dark, like, oh, fuck the corporate system. I mean, it's kind of like a parody that says that in a way, but like it's not like that. In the way it portrays itself.
the people who paved the way for Skrillex to become dubstep's first international superstar are by and large the very same people who most fervently hate him. The first thing to understand is that UK dubstep was never the orthodox movement that people like to think of it as retrospectively. No genre is ever the result of a singular-minded push towards an agreed destination. They happen very organically, often accidentally, when art points in a vaguely similar direction. The battle to define what the leading tropes of a genre are is one which is always ongoing, and even genre tropes that have long since been taken for granted are prone to being revised if other strands of the music become more popular. If you ask most dubstep heads where the genre started to go downhill, many will point you to one CD which was released in 2007, Casper and Rusko's Fabric Life 37 mix. During the year of its release, this was the definitive dubstep mix and took the genre in a new direction, which was less introspective and more lively, party-oriented, you could say. At various
Skrillex.
points, it features tunes with the types of sound design that one can retrospectively look at and find some similarities with the music that Skrillex makes. However, the shift that took place in the UK dubstep scene was far too endemic to be rationalized as the result of any one particular thing or person. It was something which happened on a far broader scale. If you want to understand the fall of dubstep, the time period which is most relevant to look at is 2008 to 2010, an era which I like to call the dubstep nether zone, because during this time, the sound was being pushed in so many different directions that it became completely undefined and amorphous as a musical space. Dubstep had been going for long enough that producers were ready to drastically challenge its established tropes, but whilst there was a shared appetite for change, different producers had very different visions for what form that change should take. I remember when Zombie's EP dropped on Hyperdub and how much that record whipped the rug out from under my feet. If Burial's music revealed the extent to which dubstep could tug on your heartstrings, Zombie's beats revealed how much dubstep could fuck with your head. This EP was, and still is, one of the most dark and twisted collections of SNES sounding beats I'd ever heard. And for 2 years, Zombie just kept going, making absolutely fucked tunes. Sometimes with lasers, sometimes with wobbles, sometimes with flutes. Zombie built this whole landscape of cursed dubstep music that existed in its own lawless parallel universe. And there were other producers who seemed to be landing on a similar headfucky sci-fi reorientation of the dubstep sound. People like Iconica, who put out
Seeing
this
what they can do
mind-blowing
with their
tune,
computers.
Please, and Becoming Real, who was channeling surrealism in these gloopy, square wave tinged compositions that were sublimely beautiful and so well and intricately orchestrated. Then you had another cohort of producers who were pushing very vocalist-centric tracks, artists like Von D, Fella, and Clouds, whose music has always, to me, felt like it has this Icelandic, folky feel to it. Vocal tunes had, of course, always been a feature of dubstep, but post-2008, it felt like there was a concerted effort made to collaborate with vocalists whose ways of singing suited the ethereal, hazy quality that the genre had always had. And the results are some of the most intriguing bits of niche pop music.
I saw something interesting recently. It was like maybe like an EDM like gathering or like festival. I didn't know that they had those, but it was like Marshmello and Crown the Empire, who is like you know, post-hardcore, maybe more like I don't really know what I'd classify them as. They're pretty interesting. Like, I like their music, but yeah, they did like this show, and like they're just playing like Marshmello, dark EDM, dubstep type beats, and like having a mosh pit, which was kind of funny to see.
Ever hear Meanwhile, there were other people taking the doom-filled darkness of the sound to its logical conclusion. Shackleton, Appleblim, and Peverillis come to mind. They mainly channeled the droning ambience of early dubstep beats and created a powerful sense of dread over rolling drums, leading to an intense and immersive sort of soundscape listening experience. And then we had fucking my top boys, the Hemlock Collective, who were light years ahead of their time, but still very much anchored to the dubstep scene. The early work of Untold in particular is genius deconstructed club music that is so jarring, yet unbelievably satisfying to listen to. And my favourite dubstep tune of all time was one which was released on Untold's label at the end of 2009. A wonky, mesmerizing, soulful record by a then completely unknown 20-year-old producer called James Blake. And yes, that is the James Blake, who now collaborates with Beyonce and plays his piano music to millions of people all over the world. The first bits of art he ever put out into the world were incredible dubstep tunes. He is gonna get his own video on my channel one day. I love his early beats so fucking much. However, if there was one strain of dubstep that you felt you could point at and put money on at the time and say, that right there, that's the future of the sound, it would be the music pioneered by a young Bristolian called Joker. To all intents and purposes, Joker had completely different sensibilities as a producer from the ones that had defined the dubstep sound just 2 years previous. His tracks, far from big, dark and brooding, were glimmering monuments to a colourful and nostalgic past. 90s gangster leads, tracks which paid homage to 1980s vocoder funk, some melodies that sounded like they came straight out of SNES games, and others that sounded like the thugged out version of the Blade Runner soundtrack. But it was all executed so beautifully that you'd be hard pressed to find anyone in the scene who wasn't immediately enraptured with Joker as soon as they heard his beats. And it showed in the amount of artists who subsequently emerged taking inspiration from him. We had Jemmy making the evil Pokemon trainer version of Joker's music, taking the gangster leads and dropping them into what feels like a long boss fight sequence. Guido, whose bittersweet tracks now sound like a UK forerunner to Clams Casino's early work, in my opinion. And Ghostmutt, whose track Thoroughbred is just like, I think it's a Destiny's Child sample, and these cool as fuck blip melodies which run up and down all the way through the tune. It's an absolute vibe. This type of dubstep, which drew its inspiration from 80s era soundtracks and old school video games, coined its own name, Purple Music. Words which were immortalized in the title of Joker's biggest rave track, Purple City. And there were so many other producers orbiting the purple sound who were so talented. It was pretty mind-blowing how much creative juice we seem to be getting from this one niche subgenre of a genre that was itself just a small corner of the UK electronic music landscape. Purple music is the answer I would have given if anyone had asked me what kind of dubstep would blow up and take the genre to the next level on the world stage in 2010. But over the course of 2009, I slowly started realizing that the vast majority of new listeners who were flocking to hear dubstep in the raves had not come to hear purple music. They were here for something else.
Skrillex.
Now we must address the elephant in the room that I've purposefully left out of the discussion until this point. Whilst there were all these eccentric strains of dubstep popping off between 2008 and 2010, they were pretty much all being collectively overshadowed by another form of the sound, which was not just carving out a space for itself, but growing exponentially in popularity with each passing month. And the name that we had for this back in 2008 was dubstep tear-out music. Tear-out tracks were distinguishable for their chaotic energy which they created through hard drums and warping mid-range bass lines. When we say mid-range, what we mean is that the bass lines were specifically engineered to register highly in the mid-frequencies, as opposed to earlier dubstep tracks where the bass lines were typically in the low-end frequencies. And I can give you a mini demonstration of how this works. So here I have a mid-range bass line. In order to turn it into a low-end bass line, I'd remove all the high-end frequencies from it like this, so that those frequencies no longer come through, and listen to how the sound changes as the high frequencies are removed. It suddenly sounds a lot deeper because the low frequencies are the only part of the bass you can hear, and on a track it creates this cavernous, meditative vibe which can be very deep and powerful when played on a big sound system.
Yeah, like shakes to your chest, goes.
This is the feeling that a lot of the early dubstep fans enjoyed, that pounding weight of the bass that presses into your chest. You get
Literally,
this
I just said
feeling
that.
like the beat is inside you, like you and everyone around
I saw
you are underwater.
I know it's not like really dubstep, but I saw AWOL Nation live, and I still remember like the you know, fucking deep bass, and how it like booms because it's like, you know, really big long sound waves, so it like causes physical shaking and shit. So
swaying
cool.
and floating in it.
Feel it.
And now let me bring the mid-range frequencies back into this bass line, and immediately you can hear how much of a difference that makes. The bass line is a much more potent force in the mix, and this drastically changes the character of the tune as a whole. It now sounds really disruptive. It's all up in your ear. It feels like a way more rowdy listening experience just from the bass taking up more frequency room. Tear Out dubstep tracks with mid-range bass lines offered a different type of experience in the rave because the fact that the bass lines were so full and fat gave them a dazzling wow factor when they dropped. They telegraphed a clear signal to the crowd. The drop is here, it's time to go mad now. So Tear Out tunes always got these immediate, explosive reactions. Small but interesting side note, there's a language culture in dubstep and 140 music in general of telling people to fuck off when you're vibing to a tune you like. I don't know when this started, but I've always found it kind of joke to think about an unsuspecting person landing on a Khan and Neek track and wondering why their fans appear to be telling them to fuck off and shut up. Very disrespectful. Now,
Funny.
I can't stress the following point enough. If your only criteria for judging music is how deep the bass is, you're an idiot. There's a time and place for every bass line, and there's nothing that
It's true.
makes deeper dubstep tracks inherently better than the mid-range ones. They just have different functions in the dance. I personally love Tear Out dubstep tracks. When you've got a little groove going and squirmy bass lines popping off over the top, it's a madness. It sounds so sick to me. I get this instant grin on my face like, yes, it's time to go mad. Ever since Koki's tune SpongeBob
Don't really get
was
that
being
feeling,
dropped
but
in
you know,
sets in
respect it.
2007,
Maybe
it was
when I
clear
was
that amongst
kid.
dubstep listeners there was a
Maybe when I was
thirst for big
12.
Tear Out crowd stopper tunes where deepness wasn't a factor. Writing for Pitchfork in 2007, Martin Clark wrote, "A recent dance floor fave in Chef and Mala sets is a new Koki dub, possibly called SpongeBob. For a while, parts of dubstep have been entering into a drum and bass style harder than thou contest, and SpongeBob certainly holds its own. The harder than thou camp often deploy heavy doses of wobbled bass lines, a style that Koki did as much as anyone to pioneer. And yet this tune takes it to the next level, deploying dark, aggressive synths in rapidly fluctuating interval patterns. They overload the tune so there's little space left for other elements, drums, etc. The result, so cold and alien, does differentiate itself from other run-of-the-mill dark dubstep beats. But the question needs to be asked, aesthetically, does dubstep really need to get that hard, dark, and cold? And the dubstep scene replied, fuck off Blackdown, you nerd. Koki's beats are sick, mate. There's no way this is going to backfire on the scene. A question which might occur to you, particularly if you're new to dubstep, is what separates Koki's beats from the ones that Skrillex makes? Why was Koki's crazy music embraced by the UK dubstep scene while Skrillex's crazy music was dismissed as
Because he's
brostep?
American.
I think that's a really good question because on the surface of things, Tear Out dubstep and brostep both do very similar things, engineering disruptive mid-range bass lines for chaos in the dance. But I think there are some important distinctions to be made
Skrillex
between the two
became
mutations
mainstream.
of the dubstep sound, which help to explain why they are differently perceived by old school fans of the dubstep genre. You'll have to forgive me for speaking extremely subjectively and broadly in this next section. Firstly, there are certain structural tendencies in dubstep production going back to the early years which Tear Out dubstep, despite having crazy sound design, still tends to closely follow. A big thing is finding a groove and letting that groove sink in over the course of a track. Tear Out producers drop mad bass lines, but they leave those bass lines to stew for the entirety of the tune. The drop feels crazy, but after 16
I guess
bars, you
Skrillex
know
is more
exactly where you
chaotic.
stand and you're able to sink into the groove as the track develops, even if it's a fairly mad sound being played. By contrast, if you listen to brostep tunes, you'll quickly realize that the people who make them can't seem to settle on a single groove for any amount of time. Every 4 bars, a new iteration of the bass line comes bursting through the door, leaving only the massive kick and snare holding the tune together, which makes it virtually impossible to find a groove. That's why you see brostep crowds giving up on dancing entirely and just headbanging to the kicks and the snare hits. That's all the track is giving them to latch onto. The other difference between Tear Out Dubstep and Brostep is the trimmings which go around the edges of a track, essentially the intro and outro. Tear Out Dubstep again follows the mold of old school dubstep production in striking a tone which is murky grey. The intros are droning ambience or a drum beat, or perhaps the hint of a few bass notes from the drop. I think this makes Tear Out Dubstep beats feel like they exist in the same aesthetic universe as the old school dubstep classics. By contrast, Brostep tunes strike very bold tones of fluorescent crimson and deepest, darkest black on their way towards
Classic
the drop.
YouTube music.
Brostep producers have this tendency of saying the quiet part out loud. For example, instead of creating sci-fi ambience, they'll have a literal alien who comes in and delivers a monologue like, "I am an evil alien and I have a base weapon and I am going to shoot it at you." And like, instead of leaving empty space in the mix so the drop comes with a
cringy, that's
surprising
funny.
impact, Brostep producers will make the drop a surprise by making the intro an entirely different song. Like, oh, a 90s rave tune. Are you enjoying that? Psych! That was merely a genius trick so that you'd be surprised by my bass line. So I guess you could say that whilst the bassline sound design of Tear Out Dubstep differentiated it from the beats you'd hear in 2006 from people like Mala and Loafer, the structural tendencies and aesthetic of Tear Out Dubstep situated it very much in the same sonic universe as its predecessor genre. By contrast, Brostep appropriated the one craziest thing about Tear Out Dubstep, the bassline noises, and proceeded to throw everything else out the window, with the result that old school fans could no longer see any trace of the genre they liked in the beats that Brostep producers were making. Nonetheless, it is true that both Koki and Skrillex achieved success through experimentation with crazy mid-range bass design, albeit on different respective levels and with different audiences, so I think it's worth exploring what was appealing to people about that specifically. Tear Out tunes like SpongeBob by Koki enjoyed several advantages over deeper tunes which had their bass low in the mix. The first advantage we've already talked about. Tear Out tunes were rave dynamite. However, another advantage they enjoyed was entirely practical. You could hear Koki's bass lines on any speaker. You didn't need to be at a rave, you didn't need to be in a car, you didn't even need to be wearing headphones. You could literally play SpongeBob out of your laptop and you're still hearing that mad growling bass. It still sounds crazy. If you compare it to tunes like Eyes by Mala, which dubstep heads typically venerate as being the higher art form of the sound, there's no comparison. Eyes sound so weak on tinny speakers, it's like there's nothing there. And I have heard Eyes on a Function 1 sound system. It's insane. You feel like you can see the waves of sound in air. It really is an out-of-body experience which nothing else even remotely compares to. But most people don't listen to music this way. They have little speakers that come as a package deal with their computers, and they are way more likely to be impressed by something that sounds powerful on these tinny little fuckers than something which they are told would sound incredible if only they had the right equipment to listen to it. And it wasn't just listeners but producers who had limited access to the studio monitors you would need to engineer bass-heavy music. It's no accident that the kinds of mid-range bass lines which took off in Tear Out Dubstep near the end of the 2000s were very similar to grime music and bassline, genres pioneered by young producers who suddenly found themselves with access to programs like Fruity Loops and Reason, but didn't have good speakers to blast their tunes on. Filling up the whole mix with wonky growling bass lines was a great way of achieving impact with an audience who would be listening to the tunes in their cars, on phones, and on laptops. But although Tear Out Dubstep tracks like SpongeBob by Koki were loved by the UK dubstep scene, there came a point where opinions began to shift on the type of dubstep that went hard for the sake of going hard. I'd venture the reason why this shift happened had little to do with the tracks themselves, although they did get more annoying. It was more to do with the regularity at which these tunes were getting played in dubstep sets. Previously, Tear Out tracks had always been held in equilibrium by other variations of the dubstep sound. The electricity of hearing a tune by Koki in the rave came from the fact that it would explode out of nowhere, straddled on either side by tunes which were not by Koki. It was the variation, the way that dubstep mixes would switch up to something mad and then simmer back down to more introspective dubstep that made going to the nights such an immensely enjoyable wild ride. But between 2008 and 2010, the ratio of tear out dubstep to everything else was becoming skewed. Instead of hearing 3 Koki-esque bangers over the course of a set, you'd hear 15, 20, sometimes people playing entire sets composed uniquely of hard tear out tunes. As I've said, I love rowdy beats, but do I want to hear SpongeBob mixed into Don't Mess About, mixed into the Where's My Money remix, then Rock the Bells, then Skeletor, then I'll Cut You, then Serious? No. It's like being tortured with an array of slightly different chainsaws, and none of them end up packing the punch which they should, because there's nothing to differentiate them from everything else being played either side of them in the mix. And this is what was happening at the Dubstep Nights. Full sets stacked full of tear-out tunes led to a fatiguing experience where the moments of electricity no longer packed the same punch. What I didn't understand at the time was that there was actually a force outside of the DJ's control that was having a massive impact on their tune selection, and that force was an anti-smoking law which came into force in summer 2007.
We're now just weeks from the ban on lighting up in public places, but there's still doubt about exactly which public places will be affected. Pubs, clubs and bars, for instance. Yes, smoking is going to be banned there.
As a non-smoker, my reaction to the banning of smoking in clubs was one of complete indifference. But unbeknownst to me, smoking played a big role in dubstep events. People liked being able to come to the rave, pick a spot to chill in, and blaze throughout the night. Experiencing DJ sets in this way, where you stand in one spot and don't move, it's like you're signing up for the adventure the selector wants to take you on, whatever that entails, whether it's weird, deep, ambient, whatever. Effectively, you end up experiencing music as a journey, rather than a roulette wheel which you hope will throw you some bangers. However, the smoking ban changed this dynamic. This is what Mala had to say about what he observed.
They don't want to stand in one
the
place
scene.
anymore. They
I think the
smoke.
smoking ban did have an impact on the sound and the dances.
They
For
were
a crew
shaking
with hard
from the
smokers,
nicotine
what happens with a
withdrawals.
smoking ban is that you have an audience that aren't focused for the whole session. You're getting people coming in and going out, and that was disruptive to
keep
the
their
dances
attention.
because it had the effect of
Dopamine
shortening
hits they're
people's
not getting
attention
from that
spans.
fucking
High
smokes.
impact and quick tunes get the quick response. This really cuts to the heart of the issue. DJs didn't necessarily want to play sets of wall-to-wall tear-out tracks, but many of them saw it as the only way they could actually keep people in the clubs during their set. Rowdy bangers pumped the room up and made people feel that they would miss out on something if they stepped outside, so DJs kept playing them. People often think of DJing as a one-way street where the DJ decides what songs they're going to play and the crowd vibes to their selection. But in reality, DJing is a lot like, well, it's a lot like having sex. You have your own specific tastes and preferences which you want to try out, but at the end of the day, your main goal is keeping the audience happy. If you're doing something and they like it, keep going. Why would you stop doing something that gives them pleasure? If you do something that you really like, but they're not into it at all, then maybe save those eccentric techniques for another occasion. Your ultimate goal here is making sure other people are happy for the duration of your performance. What was happening in dubstep raves was that DJs were getting a pretty clear yes signal every time they dropped a tear out beat, which made the DJs less and less inclined to deviate from that winning tactic. And the effect which this dynamic had on the scene was massive. It wasn't lost on young producers that like 95% of the tracks receiving heavy rotation in the raves were the rowdiest beats of the sound. So logically, that's what everyone started making. We quickly went from having just a few dubstep artists who were known for tear-out beats to having a scene which was so full of dirty modulated bassline tunes that you were hard-pressed to find anything else. And how do you stand out when everyone is making hard music? You have to be the hardest. The harder than thou competition which Black Down had warned about when he first heard SpongeBob by Koki in 2007 was coming true, in a way that was far more horrible and tasteless than even he could ever have imagined. As this transformation of dubstep music was taking place, the people coming to the raves were also changing. The crowd of people who went to dubstep nights in the early days were a mix of dreads, art school students, weed smokers and music nerds. And the vibe was everyone experiencing the music in their own headspace, so dubstep nights felt like a refuge away from commercial club culture. By 2010, that had massively changed. Without going into too much detail, it felt like the mainstream club commercialism which dubstep had been a safe haven from had finally finally caught up with it. There was more exhibitionism. Guys who uniquely turned up to hit on girls. People taking video for their Instagram. All kinds of stuff which just makes you feel like you're in some mainstream student night, but with slightly harder music on the sound system. And the new fans had come to hear exactly the type of beats which by this point I hated with a passion. Even tear out DJs like Rusko were left with a bad taste in their mouths from the kind of crowds coming to the dubstep events.
Brostep is sort of my fault, but now I'm starting to hate it in a way. It's like, I kind of took it there, and now everybody else has taken it too far. It's not heavy metal. I think I've been in America, I've had touring for a long time, and even more so, they just want it as hard as you can. They're like, Rusko, I want you to melt my face off tonight. Like, play the hardest you got. And I'm like,
Here's
it's
the
not
hardest I got.
about playing the hardest track for an hour and a half. It's like someone screaming in your face for an hour. You don't want that.
This is why I say that the change which took place in the dubstep scene can't be whittled down to any
Oh,
particular
man,
song,
crybaby.
mix CD or artist. It was happening in the very DNA of dubstep itself, with the genre taking on a whole new fan base
Might get
and
demonetized
signification as a
this
form
shit.
of music. There came a certain pivotal moment for me in early 2010 when, after walking from room to room at a dubstep night for what felt like hours, hating every minute of it, I had to admit to myself that it was over. I'd harbored this secret hope that brostep would prove to be a fad that might pass, but it was
I mean, it
just
did.
getting bigger. And although it was just music, the decision to stop going to dubstep nights was heartbreaking for me. I still loved dubstep. The dubstep Nether Zone era had been the best time to be a dubstep listener, with so much range and creativity amongst the producers that it was still difficult for me to fathom how brostep had ended up coming out on top. I'd invested all my time and energy into dubstep. I'd made lifelong friends with people through it. The
SoundCloud.
realization that I could no longer be part of a scene
I'm
that
sure
had
there's
been my
some stuff
home
on
for the last
SoundCloud.
3 years hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I was being forced to surrender part of my identity that I would never get back, and that really sucked. When Skrillex emerged in 2010, the rage which flowed from the UK dubstep scene towards him happened not because he defied some unwritten rules about what the tropes of dubstep should be, but rather because he personified everyone's worst anxieties of what we could already see happening all around us. The dark, underwater dancehall
I
we
see.
once all fell in love with had become a monument to exhibitionism. It no longer held up a mirror to the world we lived in. It defiantly turned away in favor of meaningless absurdity. And the massive popularity of Skrillex was glowing, irrefutable confirmation of the fact that we had lost the dubstep culture war. Skrillex was the cold bucket of water to the face that made us realize that the
going
enduring
as hard
legacy
as
of
it
dubstep
can.
would not be the memory of it which we had in our minds. It would be the parts of the scene which we'd all been wishing would go away. And we despised Skrillex for putting that last nail in the coffin. It was easier to be mad at Skrillex than it was to be angry at the ambiguous sequence of events in our own country which led to music tastes changing, club dynamics transforming, and producers adapting to the new climate. Perhaps the saddest and most depressing truth about what happened with dubstep is that the dubstep music we liked, just like every other piece of art, was a specific product of its time and place, which was never meant to last forever. It's just that we didn't realize it had a lifespan until it was over.
Tell me about it.
As usually happens
Emo
with a
music,
bit of time
bro.
and perspective, those things that
Now
once
it's all
made
emo
me feel
rap.
bitter have given way to stronger feelings of nostalgia
Good new
and
projects
thankfulness
out
to have
there.
been part of something bigger than myself for those formative years of my life. Although the dubstep records I listened to between 2007 and 2010 were not consequential for the trajectory the sound would take as a whole, they were very consequential for me as a person. Making and listening to dubstep beats was some
Good video. I think I'm gonna end it here. Thanks everyone for watching. That's a joke because nobody was watching. Thank you. If you came later though and decided to watch for no fucking reason, why are you here? Why are you watching this? Get a life. I was just joking. I don't have a life, so I can't say that. Good night.